chance of rain, lows around 69. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Happy Friday to us all, TGIF, little buddy.
Happy Friday, Crudy. I'm so happy it's Friday. It's been a hell of a week, and I can't wait for the weekend. So much going on in Milwaukee, Madison, summer in the Midwest. Best ever.
Tell the people what we got going on this very big party weekend.
Oh, Crudy, of course, it's the Brady Street Festival. The Milwaukee studios here at WRRD, Devil's Advocates, we have a spot here in Milwaukee. We're on Brady Street, 1224 East Brady Street, the whole street. 10, 12 blocks going to be shut down, 4 stages, beer tents, and of course, we will broadcast in the street. We got a little spot. Come by, say hi, have a beer, enjoy everything this fine city has to offer.
Dominic, I would point out, Third Brady Street Festival. We effectively launched this radio station on Brady Street. Now, the Signal, we took control on February 1, but we moved into our super cool studios on Brady just in time for Brady Street 2 years ago, Dom.
2 years? 3 years? Yeah, 2 years ago. This will be our third
2
now.
years ago, our third festival on the street. I mean, we only made it by like a week.
Hey, but we're still here. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
And we still got bumper stickers down. Come on down, get some bumper stickers from the crew, the WRD 1510 AM crew. And I'm coming down as well, buddy. I'm coming down. Why would I miss a party on Brady Street?
You can't.
Well, there's only one possibility. Why, Dom? Because it's Atwood Fest in Madison.
So many parties.
Atwood Fest kicks off tomorrow about high noon in Madison. And we're part Talk 92.7 FM, we're a promotional sponsor of that fine event. So go to Atwood Fest for those in Madison. Go to Brady Fest for those in Milwaukee. And I'll be at Atwood Fest partying my ass off on Sunday again, Dom. I'm going to meet some of the people. I'm going to give out some Talk 92.7 FM bumper stickers. And then Crudy's going on stage.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. Late in the day. It could get a little scary up there for me.
I think you'll do just fine.
I will fake it, Dom. 6 o'clock
make it.
Sunday afternoon, I'm going on stage. I believe I get to talk a skosh about Talk 92.7 FM. And then I'll be bringing one of the many fine bands to the stage, Dom. And then they'll rock out on Atwood Fest.
Sweet.
I think even Mrs. Crudy's looking forward to this weekend.
And that's on
we had a
Sunday.
Good time last
and
year.
then Monday we hit the road driving to Motown for what? A couple of debates in Detroit at the Fox Theater Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yes, that part's true as well,
It
Dom.
just doesn't stop.
No, nor would our audience want it to stop. And Dom, perhaps the best news of all. We're going to be off the air on Monday, but we got to find replacement lined up. We got the vigilante of good governance. We got Batman. Matt Rothschild's going to be our fine fill-in on Monday, 3 to 6, on all these bad stations, Dom.
That's awesome. The Wisconsin Democracy Campaign Executive Director. Now, does he have a media background? Has he been, like, I know he's very media
He's
friendly.
very vague. I'm not even sure if Adam West is his real name.
But Matt Rothschild,
Batman,
Monday going to
I
fill in
believe he does.
for the
I know
Devil's Advocates.
Well, he was, the associate editor at The Progressive. He writes many op-eds, so we know he has a strong command of the written word, Dom, unlike ourselves.
And maybe a
which
stronger...
is why we find ourselves on radio. And I
because
hope,
we have a command of the spoken word?
Let's pretend that's it. sidewalks also swarming with people. And May mentioned Fancy Brian. You're fired, man. You're not supposed to be pulling out stuff on me today. It's a Friday, man. Give me a break. It's a party weekend.
That's awesome. Do we have an announcement?
And the sidewalks, I feel quite confident, will be swarming with the people.
They will be.
At both Brady Fest and the Atwood Festivals here in Madison.
So Matt Rothschild going to fill in for the Devil's Advocates on Monday, 3 to 6 p.m. But, of course, next Thursday as well, another travel day crew. Do we have an announced guest host?
Well, we're ready to make a very big announcement, Dom. Jim Santel, fine former U.S. attorney, is going to sit in, take over the studios on Brady Street, 3 hours. He's doing it live, Dom.
That's awesome.
Yeah, James Santel. What a get. I mean, that's a little better than the former governor is all I'm saying.
You're welcome, everybody.
So it will be an exciting week with and without us next week on these radio stations, Dom. And I understand some of the other fine hosts, they got big stuff going on too. Earl's got Tom Barrett coming around on Tuesday.
Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, okay.
Yeah, we'll have to leave our regards because we won't be here. We'll be in Detroit. And a guy who I now understand might be in Detroit with us, Tom. DPW Chairman, Democratic Party of Wisconsin Chair Ben Wikler. Talked to Ben today, not at length, but we talked. We compared notes, travel plans. Apparently, he's got a ticket inside the room for the debate, Tom. La-di-da.
We don't have those.
Well, I said, here's the good news. Ben, you tell him you know us, and I bet we can get you in the spin room. I bet you can come hang out with the Devil's Advocates. So, leave it to me, Dom. I'll work out all the fine details, but I bet not just will Ben Wikler appear on this fine program today at 4 Central Time, but I bet we end up partying with the man in Detroit.
I certainly hope so. That is the expectation, Ben.
And also, Dom, a important issue, a lot of farm bankruptcies here in the state of Wisconsin. And I don't think we're talking enough about that. Obviously, the Trump chaos each and every day distracts sometimes from other important issues. And sometimes it's just the local Republicans distracting from the important issues. Now, our friend, Senator Jeff Smith, is coming on the air today, and he's going to talk about maybe a suicide prevention hotline for farmers here in the state of Wisconsin. But apparently, Dom, and I don't mean to mischaracterize, apparently the Republicans are too callous to think that the farmers might need relief in that regard, because apparently they don't want to provide the funding for said hotline for suicide prevention for Wisconsin farmers. Something of a contentious issue. We'll talk with Jeff Smith, 4:30 today, about it and other rural issues here in the state of Wisconsin. And Don, we're going to do some good deeds in the 5 o'clock hour. We're going to have some friends here in the Madison studio. We'll talk about that in the happy hour. Maybe even a legal eagle coming around your way. But the big show, Tom, where do we lead it off today, man? It's been a busy day, but what's the chaos leading indicator of the day? Where do we start with the Donald Trump news?
I mean, of course, Donald Trump and Donald Trump screaming on Fox News, treason and high crimes. But for some reason, I don't think he was admitting guilt. He was projecting yet again. Let's play it for the people.
Declaring treason for a reason, Tom?
Let's start with cut 41, Trump on Hannity yesterday.
This should never happen to another president of the United States.
Never happen again. We should never have a circumstance where a president willingly accepts help from a hostile foreign government and then tailors his very specific campaign strategy around the release and information obtained by the illegal hacking of the political rivals of the president by the Russians and its coordinated distribution through WikiLeaks. That should never happen again.
Why not, Tom? It was effective for Donald Trump's campaign.
I mean, if it works.
And apparently Moscow Mitch McConnell will be just fine if it happens all over again. We'll talk about Mitch McConnell on this big show as well. But back to the tales of treason, Dom.
Cut number 42.
This was a fake witch hunt, and it should never be allowed to happen to another president again. This was treason. This was high crimes. This was everything as bad a
misdemeanors at it.
definition as you want to come up with. This should never be allowed to happen to our country again.
Those are fucking fighting words.
No, I don't, for some reason, don't think he's referring to his own actions. But when he throws that out there like that, when he specifically says treason again, what was his last cut? Oh, is that treason? Well, maybe it is. And now he throws on high crimes. And he was as begging for attention yesterday on the Fox News network.
Well, he went on Hannity. He's going to friendly turf, Dom. Here's a little article. I found this at the Raw Story. Trump responds to Mueller testimony by going on Fox News and crying treason. On Thursday, President Donald Trump took an interview with Fox News' Sean Hannity, in which he once again blasted former special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation of his potential ties to Russia and his alleged attempts to obstruct justice as treason. We heard the sound. This should never happen to another president of the United States again, thundered Trump. This is an absolute catastrophe for our country. And by that, of course, he means his presidency, I suspect. But I read on from the quote, this was a fake witch hunt, and it should never be allowed to happen to another president again. This was treason. This was high crimes. This was everything as bad as a definition as you want to come up with. This should never be allowed to happen to our country again. He added that he had the absolute right to fire Mueller, Dom, under Article 2, but decided not to. So his defense for obstruction of justice, of course, is Article 2, which was the Nixon defense. If the president does it by virtue of the fact he's the president, it's automatically legal.
That didn't really work out for Nixon.
Well, so far it's working out better for Trump, but, I think that might have an expiration date.
Well, it worked out well for Nixon for a while. You can delay for a while. You can fool the people for a while. But, hopefully energetic, informed citizens will not allow that to continue.
Well, Tom, there was a reaction over on the House Democratic side. Judiciary Committee members, including Nadler, including Eric Swalwell, including others, well, apparently they're going to sue the administration, Dom. They want enforceable subpoenas, and that started today. And we're the devil's advocates. We started like 7 years ago. But we get better every single day. It seems theoretically implausible. Yet somehow, here we are doing it. The best show ever each and every day on the radio. And it's going to be a party weekend. It's going to be a debate, 2-day event. And even our fill-in shows could be the greatest ever. We got the greatest fill-in guest ever. Batman on Monday, Matt Rothschild. James Santella, fine former U.S. attorney on Thursday. And wedged in the meat and the Devil's Advocate sandwich, 2 live debate shows from Detroit, Rock City, going live. 3 to 7, 4 hours of Devil's Advocates, 2 hours of live debates. Man, it just doesn't get better than this little radio station. Come back with us. You're listening to, some say, the greatest radio show ever. You can be a part, 844-967-2789. I'm feeling good. It's Friday.
From coast to coast, so you stop being like a comatose. Stand, my man, the beats the same where the boast. Rock with some pizzazz, it will last. Why you ask? Roll with the rock stars.
If you cheat on your wife, are you going to be honest with your country?
This was treason.
But this specifically, those people that donated and were part of this organization got access, special access that nobody else would get.
This was high crime.
Shocking pay-to-play scheme.
This was everything as bad a definition as you want to come up with. This should never be allowed to happen to our country again.
We'll deal with this tomorrow night.
County Executive Chris Avery has declared racism a public health crisis, but he cuts the bus routes for mostly black families driven mostly by black drivers.
Milwaukee knows that Chris Abele is not on our side. Milwaukee has learned that pretty clearly, and he's not going to be protecting the poor of this city or the working class of this city, and we know that.
Call Chris Abele at 414-278-4338. Tell him you support the Transit Workers Local 998, and ask him why is he making this public health crisis worse.
Accredited Investors, WRD 1510 seeks to immediately construct 101.7 in Milwaukee, a brand new 24/7 FM licensed to cover up to 1.8 million people in the nation's number 31 media market. Milwaukee has a Wisconsin Supreme Court primary, a presidential primary, mayoral and county executive races, a Supreme Court general, the Democratic National Convention, and the 2020 presidential race next year. For an accredited investor, there's never been a better time to invest or extend a fixed return loan to an expanding lefty radio station, 1.2 miles from the National Convention. Interested parties call me at the station or email Crute@talk927fm.com. That's Crute@talk927fm.com. Investments may be subject to an SEC 506C filing.
Got unwanted pests in your home or business? Call Get Rid Pest Control at 414-368-0696. State licensed and certified with over 20 years experience, Get Rid Pest Control guarantees their work in the removal of common household pests, including mice, rats, ants, roaches, spiders, centipedes, and bedbugs. Humane trapping and removal of larger pests as well. Unmarked vehicles available upon request. 24-hour emergency service available. Call Get Rid Pest Control today for your free estimate. 414-368-0696. If you got it, we'll get it.
The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
This was treason.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and on Facebook. We're on Twitter at Devil Radio and the political party line. Toll free. Talk or text at 844-967-2789. Pete, he's pretty excited about the party weekend. He texts out, will Dom be at the Roman Coin? Hell yes, I will be at the Roman Coin. I'll be there tonight and tomorrow. Hell, I might be there Sunday.
Dominic, it's unfortunate for the Facebook live stream audience today because you're wearing an embargoed Brady Street Festival 2019 t-shirt. I mean, the public should not be aware of that. It's a good thing I've got the Facebook live stream.
See, they can just go over
I've got the com.
They can go over to the YouTube page, the Devil's Advocates YouTube page. I'm on there looking all sexy. Regarding Roman Coin. I'm trying to get Terry here later. We'll see what happens.
Dominic, I want to throw this little article out there for the audience's consideration. A Friday grievance of sorts. Again, Joe Scarborough. We've talked about him a couple days in a row. Over on the Morning Joe, MSNBC, you know
honestly,
who I'm talking about.
Not a fan, but please continue.
You might like this one, though. According to the Hill.com, MSC host Joe Scarborough on Friday lashed out at Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. I sound like Scott Walker there for half a second.
It's about time you say the Mitch McConnell right.
Calling him Mitch McConnell. Called him Moscow Mitch over his inaction on legislation to address Russian election interference. Scarborough made the comments about the Kentucky Republican during a segment on Morning Joe after McConnell blocked 2 election security measures. The hashtag Moscow Mitch quickly began trending on Twitter following his comments. Mitch McConnell's trending today. That might be the first time. Scarborough, a former GOP lawmaker, called McConnell's actions un-American. I concur. Here's a quote. How can Moscow Mitch so willingly turn a blind eye, not only this year, to what his Republican chairman of the Intel Committee is saying, to what Robert Mueller is saying, to what the FBI director is saying, to what the DNI director of national intelligence is saying, to what the CIA is saying, to what the United States military intel community is saying? Scarborough asked, how can Moscow Mitch keep denying the Russian President Vladimir Putin continues to try to subvert American democracy? Scarborough accused McConnell of aiding and abetting Vladimir Putin's ongoing attempts to subvert American democracy and said it was un-American for McConnell to block the Senate from taking up election security legislation. The nickname took off on social media, as noted, Dom, with more than 65,000 tweets mentioning the nickname on social media. As of Friday morning, I added ours to the collection, Dom. That's like 65,001.
Great.
And one of my favorite, people have already got the memes up there. I love the one of Mitch McChinless, the Senate Majority Leader from Kentucky, wearing like a Red Army coat and the Russian hat, the fur hat. And he's obviously in Red Square, but there he is, Moscow Mitch.
You know, the report that came out from the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, there's been more reporting on it, 67 pages, I believe, much of it redacted. And I don't have it in front of me. New York Times said it, and CNN is also reporting all 50 states were attacked in 2016. Now, this is news to me. That's the first time that I recall the government specifically identifying that every single state in the union was under attack by these Russians in their effort to mess with our election system. So the scenery here has changed since it first started getting dripped out that there were efforts here and, a state here and a state there. And, for a couple of counties in Florida, maybe they got in. No, now we find out every single state was attacked. Now, what was the end result of those attacks? I'm not clear because much of this report is still redacted.
Now, Dominic, we had seen prior reporting 21 states under attack from apparently Russian hackers, including the great state of Wisconsin. And then the Attorney General, Brad Schimmel, you remember, the Republican hack, we finally got rid of that guy. Well, that guy told us that we didn't really get hacked, not here in the state of Wisconsin. No efforts, apparently, to believe Schimmel's account. And then I believe it was Mark Thompson that headed up, the Elections Commission here in the state of Wisconsin. Yep. And Mark said either we are owed an apology or an explanation. And my understanding is, indeed, Russians tried to hack the election systems here in the great state of Wisconsin. A couple of other show notes quickly, Dom. Karen McKim, she is a good elections and election integrity activist. I love Karen McKim, and she's coming on this show, but not until we return from Detroit. She'll join us about a week from today. She's up north there, enjoying a cabin. So Karen McKim will be on this program next Friday. We'll talk about Wisconsin systems. And at your request/demand, I did call the Attorney General's office of the great state of Wisconsin, and I'm looking for an update from Josh Call and his administration.
Yes, the new Attorney General.
Yes, let's have him on. He likes us. He's not a hack, as near as I can tell, like the last guy was. More Devil's Advocates, TGIF, join us on the phones. The great guests, they're going to start in the 4 o'clock hour, but your calls, they start right now, 844-967-2789.
Want to see the super sexiest political show on earth? Check out the Devil's Advocates on YouTube.
Regano's Roman coin.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and my family owns Madison Liquidators, a company with sustainability as our business model. We are excited to announce that we are moving into a bigger, nicer location, allowing us to serve you better with expanded inventories of both new and used office furniture. Right now, we will give you a great deal because we would much rather move any of our current inventory into your office than our new space. Check out our complete inventory online at madisonliquidators.com or come make a deal off Pleasant View Road in Middleton before moving day.
The Devil's Advocates.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. What about simply raising the age of weapons purchases to 21 years of age?
We're sending 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds over to Afghanistan, and they're dying. They ought to be able to vote. They ought to be able to have a beer, and they ought to be able to buy a gun to hunt with as well.
Are you suggesting we lower the drinking age?
No. Can't they do that now? What is the age nowadays?
It's 21, sir.
We drink when we toast. We toast when we drink.
Yikes.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
From the Capitol in Madison, this is Wiz Politics Midday.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Popletti, and our report for Friday, July 26th is brought to you by Spectrum. Rep. Joan Ballwig accused Ag Secretary Brad Pfaff of playing, quote, a political game of keep away, as Republican lawmakers continue to pile on criticism to the DATCAP head. But first, the state GOP paid off nearly $38,000 of its debts last month as it tried to continue digging out from a 2018 cycle that prompted the party to do a post-mortem on its operations. Spokesman Charles Nichols said the party isn't paying off all the debt, despite having the cash balance to do so, in order to make sure it has the resources necessary to build infrastructure ahead of the 2020 election. The original goal was to pay off the debt by year's end, and it remains on pace to accomplish that. Additionally, U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders is calling for Enbridge to shut down a pipeline that transports oil and natural gas from Superior to Ontario, Canada by way of Michigan. The Vermont Independent, in a tweet yesterday, called on Enbridge to nix plans for a replacement tunnel for the 66-year-old Line 5, citing an oil spill 9 years ago on a different Enbridge line. Sanders is the second Dem presidential candidate to call for the line to be shut down. Earlier this month, Washington Governor Jay Inslee, in a series of tweets, described the tunnel and the pipeline as, quote, a clear and present threat to the health of the Great Lakes and to our climate. Line 5 is also facing legal challenges in Wisconsin after the Bad River Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians filed a suit in federal court earlier this week in hopes of removing the pipeline from part of the 125,000-acre reservation in northern Wisconsin. The lawsuit alleges the pipeline is on the verge of spilling its contents into the surrounding environment. Finally, Ballweg, who chairs the Speaker's task force on suicide prevention, charged that Pfaff's office, despite multiple requests, failed to provide her office with statistics on a mental health program for farmers. A spokeswoman for the Marcuson Republican further alleged that DATCAP then provided those statistics to upfront host Adrian Peterson ahead of Ballweg's pre-taped interview that will air Sunday as part of the show produced in partnership with WisPolitics.com. A DATCAP spokeswoman declined to comment on the story. For WisPolitics Midday, sponsored by Spectrum, I'm Pat Pobletti.
This has been WisPolitics Midday. For more state government and political news, visit WisPolitics.com.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
The Devil's Advocates, so relevant they have 1 foot in tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Buddy, our last show for the week. And for a couple days thereafter, man, we're taking the show on the road. We got fill-in host, fine ones indeed, Matt Rothschild on Monday. He's Batman. He'll be filling in for us 3-6 Central Time Monday. I bet it will be better than anything you ever did on the radio. And then we've got James Santel, a fine former U.S. attorney, on Thursday. He might be better than I've ever been on the radio. So, you know, in our absence, Dom, this show may be better.
It very well could be.
Although that seems theoretically implausible, as I said before. Dom, wanted to throw a new topic out, but still relating to Moscow Mitch McConnell. Paul Waldman at the Washington Post had this to say. Mitch McConnell is right. Secure, open elections would elect more Democrats. I'll go first. They're doing it as we sit here, replied Robert S. Mueller when asked in his testimony Wednesday whether Russia will again interfere in our elections. Again, a quote from Mueller. And they expect to do it during the next campaign. The fact that Russia's assistance to the Trump campaign got such high profile discussion, gave Democrats an opportunity to push a pair of election security bills in the Senate on Thursday. Here's what happened next. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell blocked 2 election security measures on Thursday, arguing Democrats are trying to give themselves a political benefit. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had tried to get consent Thursday to pass a House bill that requires the use of paper ballots and includes fundings for the Elections Assistance Commission. It passed the House 225 to 184, with one Republican voting for it. But Mitch McConnell objected, saying Schumer was trying to pass partisan legislation. Clearly, this request is not a serious effort to make a law. Clearly, something so partisan that only received one single solitary Republican vote in the House is not going to travel through the Senate by unanimous consent, McConnell said. And back to Waldman's writing, Dom. Guess what? McConnell's right. legislation to secure our elections is partisan. And the fact that it's partisan shows just how pathological the Republican Party has become in its determination to hold onto power. So here are some things that in our system today are partisan, air quotes, in the sense that if we do them, they would advantage the Democratic Party over the Republican Party. Here's a few bullet points, Dom. Securing our voting systems from foreign hacking, allowing every American to vote, making it easy as possible for Americans to vote, and ensuring that all votes count equally. What Scott Walker say very recently, rural votes should count for more. I read on. Now consider what it says about your party if doing those things would make it much more likely that you'd lose. Republicans have quite plainly looked at our current state of electoral dysfunction and concluded that it's working pretty darn well for them. Donald Trump's president, isn't he? Why would we want to mess with a system that's producing such wonderful outcomes?
Crudy, the legislation to which McConnell refers, the one that passed the House, is pretty straightforward. It requires voter verifiable paper ballots and voting machines that don't connect directly to the internet so that recounts can be done accurately and there's less vulnerability to hacking. It gives states money to secure their systems. It instructs the Election Assistance Commission to do a study to determine optimal ballot designs to minimize voter confusion and errors. You wouldn't think there's anything that would be particularly advantage one party over another, but that's only if you didn't know how voting really works in this country. That's because so much of what plagues our election system works to the advantage of Republicans, in part because their voters tend to be older and wealthier, and in part because of all the effort Republicans have put into erecting obstacles in the path of Democratic-leaning constituencies attempting to vote, not to mention the gerrymandering that makes Republican votes worth more and the Electoral College that does the same. Of course, let's not forget that the leader of the Republican Party said publicly that if a foreign power offered him help in his re-election bid, he'd accept it. Republicans just aren't willing to impede the progress of any thumb on its way to the electoral scale, especially if the thumb belongs to Vladimir Putin. We don't know if there are any hostile foreign governments ready to hack our elections in order to defeat Trump, but there's at least one that is probably ready to help him. So
Again.
yes. So yes, securing our elections is partisan. So is making it easier to vote, because as Republicans surely know, the population of non-voters as a whole is younger, less white, and more liberal than the population of voters. If every American voted, more Democrats would win. Anything Republicans can do to keep them from getting the polls, they'll do. That's where we are today. The last thing Republicans want is elections that are secure, fair, free, and open, and they'll make sure that's not what we have.
You sound a little bitter about
I am
that,
a little
Tom.
bitter. You know, this is absolutely ridiculous. And what's not mentioned in here, I understand that Schumer said, okay, bring up another one. Let's talk about another bill. Get something done. We have a bipartisan Senate report that says every state was attacked, every single one. A day after, the same day that McConnell says, no, we can't, this is just, coming from the Democrats that tried to tie Trump to the Russians. What are you kidding me? Of course Trump is tied to the Russians. Read the Mueller report. So, I mean, Mitch McConnell is as guilty in this entire endeavor as Donald Trump is.
Well, Dominic, as this article points out, and as I would remind you, my little buddy, and we'll get to the phones in just a moment, be patient, 844-967-2789. Before it was the Russians attacking the machinations of the election, it was the Republicans. Dale Schultz came on this show in March of 2014 and enumerated the way that his caucus were attacking the machinations of the election. He said at that time, they, the Republicans, were effectively out of good ideas, and he was done defending them. And that conversation with us, Tom, that became Exhibit 1 in the federal voter ID trial. And I would point out that worked to some degree. There were a number of the malfeasances of the Republicans that were pushed back on by the federal courts. But the fact that we have a voter ID at all, maybe in some small part, the reason we've got President Donald Trump. It was a voter suppressive effort at the onset. Republicans knew what they were doing
They
and
said
how they
it
were
on
gleeful
the
about
television. It was specifically Congressman now, Glenn Grothman.
Well, I believe Fitzy also said something untoward. And I believe your girl, Leah Vukmir, at least if you believe the reporting, Leah Vukmir apparently was a little frothy with enthusiasm about the idea that you could shut down the election or the votes, or at least dissuade the votes of minorities and college kids. 844-967-2789. You hold your tongue, young man. Ladies first. Betsy, you're first today. Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Betsy.
I'm feeling relatively happy. Dom less so, but I'm happy.
Now, until I read that last article, Betsy, but please go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that you guys make me happy because you changed my whole outlook on so much, because I am so very moody the past, since Scott Walker. I mean, my God. And I have not been the same person since I've been awakened. And yes, Scott, this is what the Republicans are doing. They are making it harder and harder for people to vote, and throwing people off the voter rolls. And, they're doing everything and anything to dissuade. I mean, they're even imprisoning people, locking them up, unless you're Republican. So, I mean, I just want to tell you guys, Moscow Mitch and is a great nickname for him. But, I want you to talk about the farmers, and I'm so glad you're bringing it up, that here in Wisconsin, yeah, it's a pretty sad situation. And the other thing is, Donald Trump is absolutely right. This should never happen in our country ever again. So I really pray that we get rid of him. And I hope people realize that, Republicans, they're a dying breed. I mean, it is just, and they are absolutely fighting to keep the power. And I'm not going to be surprised if Donald Trump wins. I'm just sick about it, but it's just I'm trying to prepare myself. And I just really hope people get out and vote like they've never voted before.
I'm not even feeling any anxiety at this point, Betsy. I could not conceive of Donald Trump being reelected after Donald Trump's first term. But above and beyond that, I couldn't conceive of him being elected the first time through. So I can see your anxiousness. Betsy, thanks for the call. Have a wonderful weekend. But ultimately, I think the American people have learned some lesson. And I think the thing that got Donald Trump elected more than anything else was the number of people that stayed home, that didn't see the value of voting for Hillary Clinton, or maybe they went third party, or maybe they just sat that elective cycle out. And I don't think anybody's going to sit this elective cycle out. And if we take the broader electorate, Dom, Republicans cannot win. Republicans only win when people stay home. So, Betsy, you only have something to fear if your neighbors don't get out and vote. But if we knock on every door, and I don't care who they vote for, I'll take my chances if every man and woman that's legally entitled goes out and votes in the state of Wisconsin, it will be a blue wave.
Thank you for the call, Betsy. I would also add to that. Hang on, but quickly, if I may. Not only the promises made by Donald Trump on the campaign trail, he actually co-opted some of Bernie Sanders. Everyone's going to have great insurance, right? We're going to cover pre-existing conditions, right? Then it's an economic message. We're going to, all this manufacturing is going to come back. We're going to have all sorts of, great GDP growth, and we're going to be at 5%, hell, maybe even 6%. Well, those things obviously did not come true. Obviously, the Republicans and Donald Trump are trying to torpedo what's left of the ACA, and they have no plan for anybody with pre-existing conditions. And if this economy, continues to seemingly slow down, revised GDP from last quarter down to 2.1%, not terrible, not as bad as they thought it was going to be, but certainly not the 4 or 5 or whatever Trump was out there promising it would be. So there's going to be some realization that if they are successful in repealing the ACA, that, Republicans with pre-existing conditions are now once again going to be screwed. And if they see that, no, the carrier jobs did not come back, that all these things that he promised and talked about did not eventually happen. No, the coal industry is not that great. And there's going to be some realization, I would imagine, especially when it hits them personally. And that's when people get woke.
Dom, I remember what got you woke. You used to be kind of half a Republican as far as I could tell. And we used to argue quite a bit. And then you got arrested. Do you realize that was 6 years ago yesterday that you were unlawfully, unconstitutionally arrested at the Wisconsin State Capitol by Scott Walker's minions, as was I? And my crime was singing in protest. And your crime was looking like a protest, apparently.
Right? No doubt. Nothing
Maybe it was
nothing
the
to wake
flip-flops that got
somebody
you
up.
arrested that
Whatever.
day.
I love flip-flops. That's got nothing to do with my ability to be Wisconsin, a U.S. citizen. So, nothing will wake you up more than like a little jolt of fascism. And I can't even talk tax policy when you got fascist, corrupt bastards in power. I'd love to get back to those wonderful arguments.
And I would point out, you and I have been vindicated. We were 3-0 against the man. In the state courts, I was the defendant. Go look it up. Wisconsin v. Crute. I won, and then I was upheld on appeal 3-0, and then you took it to the federal courts, Dom, as a plaintiff, and you won a fairly substantial settlement. I know Jeff got the bigger portion.
$75,000. Over 50% went to Jeff, but, what do you want? It was great attorney done by Jeff.
That was for 45 minutes in handcuffs? I'm sure you'll do worse than that later tonight.
It wasn't the 45 minutes in handcuffs. It was the fact that, what I wanted to do was start blasting dudes. The guy that arrested me for taking pictures.
You were paid for restraint?
I was absolutely paid for restraint. The guy was smaller than me. I could have taken him. I think I could take half of those cops down there on a fair fight. But of course, that's when you get tased, and that's when you get shot. You got what do you do? So I complied, and to this day, it still grinds me that these guys basically got away with it. Officer Fell, that's his name, the little dude around the Capitol. If you see him, he didn't have to go to his pocket to pay that. That was on the state taxpayers. So ultimately, they got away with it.
Even Meathead. The guy that arrested me, or at least directed the arrest of me. Yeah. He asked me to please stop calling him Meathead. I see him around the Capitol these days. Here's one point I would make. You know how rapidly your attitude changed when your First Amendment rights were suppressed by the Walker administration. You kind of moved away from some of the other secondary issues, right?
Sure.
Well, how do you think we as a people, as an American people, should react when Donald Trump's telling people to send them back, and Donald Trump's taking children away from their parents, and Donald Trump is making a mockery of the U.S. election system and the Constitution by lying to the special counsel, as he pointed out in his testimony, and obstructing justice, as was clearly demonstrated in at least 5 cases in a provable evidentiary format that would be necessary to prosecute him in a court of law after he's no longer the president.
And, of course, denying Congress's constitutional duty of executive oversight by not complying with one single subpoena. Not one.
But, pardon me, if under those current circumstances, under this president, I don't cheer for a 2.1% growth in the GDP. That becomes something of a secondary issue to impeach the MFer. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. It's Friday. We air grievances. Want to hear from you. 844-967-2789. We'll be right back.
Russia, if you're listening.
It's just a highly partisan bill from the same folks who spent 2 years hyping up a conspiracy theory about President Trump and Russia.
There should be no fuzz on this whatsoever. The Russians
interfered in our election during the 2016 cycle.
I support both the action and the objective.
They did interfere in our elections. It's really clear. There should be no doubt about that.
I don't think we are wrong.
We'd like to have Russia's help. Very important.
America is back.
Transit worker Local 998 knows that cuts to transit service are cuts to our community.
I will get paid like $7.25 doing the same things I'm doing out here, and I'm getting paid $10.
You know, I'm a disabled veteran, and, you know, this is my only way of getting around at this point.
No, I got a car at the house, but my mama don't like driving all the time, or she got work and stuff, so I rely on the bus, you feel me?
There is no other way. If the bus wasn't there, I would have to call somebody for a ride, and, you know, I can't really afford to give people gas money for rides, and I don't have a vehicle, so these buses really help me out a lot.
Transit worker Local 998 also know who is responsible for these cuts, and so does the county.
Milwaukee knows that Chris Abele is not on our side. Milwaukee has learned that pretty clearly, and he's not going to be protecting the poor of this city or the working class of this city, and we know that.
Call Chris Abele at 414-278-4338 and tell him you support your community and Transit Workers Local 998.
The Packing House Restaurant, located at 900 East Layton Avenue, offers fine dining and casual supper club style. Family owned and operated for over 40 years, the Packing House features great steaks, prime rib, and the best fish fry around. Join us for live music on Wednesday through Saturday evenings. The Packing House Restaurant, open for lunch, Monday through Friday, and dinner nightly. Call us at 414-483-5054 or visit us online at packinghousemke.com.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
Hey, the Devil's Advocates here. Yeah, man. All right.
Bring it? Oh, it's already been brought in. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio, and the political party line. Talk or text 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I think that voice the audience heard there, I think that's Sergeant David. Don't call me Meathead Davis. You know, he kind of warmed up to us after he arrested us. So many of those guys were just doing what they were told. You know, the orders to arrest, they came ultimately from the Walker administration, be it, A.G. Schimmel, or be it Scott Walker. You know, Scott Walker knew it was happening and gave his consent, or they would not have been unconstitutionally arresting hundreds of people. Including, tourists, children, literally, people under the age of 18 years old were being arrested. You, Monday's guest, Matt Rothschild, who's filling in for us, he got arrested. But somehow you got paid and the rest of us just had to plug the meter.
If I can take on 100,000 protesters, I can do the same across the world.
Fascist bastards.
And he pivoted on that to go run for president. Yet he got run over. Scott Walker, that is, the failed presidential campaign of Scott Walker, got run over by Donald Trump. Perhaps with a little help from the Russians. But last point, and then we're getting to the callers. I would point out Scott Walker, more than willing to collude with the Russians had he been the nominee. Let's not forget about his little meeting with Maria Butina at the NRA event and the fact that she was there at his campaign launch. You know, Maria Butina, the convicted Russian spy, that one?
Yeah, I remember that one. Didn't his administration, or at least his campaign, misinform us about the circumstances and where the meeting took place?
Well, they lied about it. Yes, absolutely. They lied, then said she met him at a rope line. And no, it was in the green room. It was in the VIP location at the NRA where your candidate, Scott Walker, greeted her in the Mother Russian.
Oh, he took a little Russian at Marquette.
Took some Russian at Marquette, yeah. It's about the only thing he apparently learned in college. 844-967-2789. Let's get to our happy audience. Mark from the SAC, I think you're next up, buddy. Welcome.
I thought you took French in college.
That was me. Oui.
Oh, no. Well, the whole treason thing, that I posted this a couple of times now, that Trump needs to, he took an oath to the Constitution. He should somebody should at least plug into his ear that treason, Section 3, Article 3, Section 3, treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or adhering to their enemies, give them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in an open court. That's pretty simple, and the fact that Sean Hannity is unwilling or unable, or that he's complicit too in this whole thing, is a sign of the complete corruption of Fox News. I mean, Fox News, they don't condemn the president when he calls the press the enemy of the people. A couple of more things before I forget.
Well, because he doesn't mean them. He means the other press.
Yeah, well, Brad Schimmel is now a judge, and this clown didn't know that we were hacked, or did he know we were hacked, and he just was lying to us when he said we weren't hacked.
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget the Russians funneled $32 million to Donald Trump's campaign through the NRA. Let's not forget Brad Schimmel, also a big recipient of NRA grandiose, as was Scott Walker.
Joe from Madison, you are next. Thanks for calling. What do you got for us?
Hey, Joe.
Well, first, many thanks for the week. You guys did a bang-up job, and I'm looking forward to next week, too.
Thank you.
I know it was a lot to do, and I just think it's great. Yeah, I really appreciate what you offered. It's always this issue of framing and how you describe things, and I think what you were saying in the last bit that you had where you said, look, economics are one thing, but when you're getting arrested, who cares what the stock market is doing? I think that one thing that has struck me is that this last week really was the best way to describe it is a three-alarm fire in reference to our election security. When you have Chris Wray, director of the FBI, saying, yeah, they're getting into our elections, and then the next day, Mueller is saying, yeah, there's sweeping intrusions by the Russians, and they're doing it again now. And then the next day, we have the Senate Intel Committee, that's a joint committee, saying, yeah, we're really worried. Look at all this stuff we've redacted out because it's too darn scary to talk about what the heck is out there. And I think that the words three-alarm fire, just 1, 2, 3, three really important individuals, organizations have said, we're under siege, and it really is time to treat it with that level of seriousness rather than to say we're going to give it a measured consideration.
Got to cut you short, Joe. Thank you so much. You make an excellent point. Of course, Moscow Mitch McConnell's response completely inadequate. Come back with us, Ben Wikler, chair of the Democratic Party of the great state of Wisconsin.
Do you want to be a winner? All the winners I know like the Devil's Advocates Facebook page.
This was treason.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
County Executive Chris Avery has declared racism a public health crisis, but he cuts the bus route for mostly black families driven mostly by black drivers.
Milwaukee knows that Chris Abele is not on our side. Milwaukee has learned that pretty clearly, and he's not going to be protecting the poor of this city or the working class of this city, and we know that.
Call Chris Abele at 414-278-4338. Tell him you support and transit workers local 998, and ask him why is he making this public health crisis worse.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
Border deal. Democrats divided. I'm Mike Moss. President Trump says the U.S. and Guatemala have signed a safe third country deal, which he says will reduce the number of asylum seekers trying to get into the U.S.
It's going to provide safety for legitimate asylum seekers and stop asylum fraud and abuses system.
The president says the agreement will, however, make it easier for farmers and ranchers to get seasonal workers. Democrats are divided on the issue of impeaching the president, but the number of lawmakers supporting impeachment in the House has reached 100 with the support of California's Mike Levin.
It remains my responsibility to do what I can.
But Manu Raju with more.
The headline here is they took a pretty significant step towards possibly moving towards an impeachment proceeding, because what they are arguing in this lawsuit is that they need this information, this grand jury information from the Mueller probe, in order to decide whether or not to recommend articles of impeachment against the President of the United States.
Freshman Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez met privately with Speaker Nancy Pelosi today as the two took time to discuss their differences, and when it was over, said the talk went well.
It was a positive meeting and productive.
An unrelenting heat wave pushed temperatures into triple digits in France today, triggering hail and thunderstorms that caused mudslides that forced suspension of the Tour de France. Correspondent Don Riddell says the scene was chaotic.
Panic around the people that were there watching it, because they knew that they only had a matter of minutes to get this message back up the mountain to the organizers to try and get the racers to stop.
Luckily, no one was hurt in the mudslides, and the race will resume tomorrow. On Wall Street, the Dow up 51, S&P closed up 22. I'm Mike Moss.
Got unwanted pests in your home or business? Call Get Rid Pest Control at 414-368-0696. State licensed and certified with over 20 years experience, Get Rid Pest Control guarantees their work in the removal of common household pests, including mice, rats, ants, roaches, spiders, centipedes, and bedbugs. Humane trapping and removal of larger pests as well. Unmarked vehicles available upon request. 24-hour emergency service available. Call Get Rid Pest Control today for your free estimate. 414-368-0696. If you got it, we'll get it.
The second Democratic presidential debates will air live on WRRD 1510 AM and Talk 92.7 FM. July 30th and 31st, the Devil's Advocates will provide on-the-ground Detroit Rock City coverage 3 to 7 p.m. Central Time, and then live debate to air 7 to 9 with limited commercial interruptions thanks to the Teamsters Local 200. Dems' second presidential debate, Devil's Advocate style, July 30th and 31st, exclusively on WRRD 1510 AM and Talk 92.7 FM.
Signed off on the T-Mobile Sprint merger, creating a third supersized wireless carrier.
While the DOJ signed off on the deal, it wasn't without conditions. As part of the settlement to alleviate concerns about limiting competition and choices for consumers, Sprint is selling a number of its businesses to the satellite service Dish. That includes Sprint's prepaid mobile companies Boost and Virgin Mobile to create a new cell service provider. When T-Mobile and Sprint are combined, it'll be the third largest cell phone company in the U.S. with a total of 92 million phone subscribers. Verizon has 118 million and AT&T has 94 million. Steve Kastenbaum, New York.
It's hard to catch lightning in a bottle twice. Organizers who've been stumbling along trying to create a 50th anniversary Woodstock concert say Jay-Z and John Fogerty have pulled out as the organizers are trying to stage the event near Baltimore. They have 3 weeks to sign new acts before the scheduled event. I'm Mike Moss.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635.
Once the envy of the world has never faced more screw. Busted Pencils Radio. Educated educators talking education. Tuesday nights at 7, right here on WRRD 1510 AM, Milwaukee.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your having in them. This latest blow to the disadvantaged follows the loss of food stamps by 100,000 Wisconsin residents since 2015 because they did not meet new requirements to work in order to receive food assistance. And one of Milwaukee's biggest street parties, the Brady Street Festival, is tomorrow from 11 a.m. until midnight on Milwaukee's east side. There will be food, music, beer, BMX demos, and the Cream City Queens drag show. We will be broadcasting live from the festival starting at noon. Stop by and say hello. For more information, go to bradystreet.org and click on the events page.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dom, this show's getting better right about now. We got a fine guest live via phone. He is Ben Wikler, chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. We welcome him back. Ben, welcome back.
Great to be back with the Devils.
Thank you, Ben.
Nice to talk to you, Dom. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Now, Ben, I realize you're a state party chair, but I've got to ask you, Mueller testimony on Wednesday, this seemed, to be a dud if you believe some of the pontificators, but I think it was stunning to see the evidence of a felonious president laid out in the way it was by the testimony of the special counsel. Ben, how does it affect us here in the state of Wisconsin? What do we do about this whole issue of a felonious president?
We got to get this guy out of office. We've got to do it. Here's the thing. That the idea that Robert Mueller was going to come out and be, Gene Simmons putting on a giant heavy metal show in the hearing room, it was never going to happen. This is the most sober, down the middle guy, and he was very cautious. He was asking for clarifications and questions, all that kind of stuff, but he was laying out facts that were politically explosive. And he did so in a way that no one could accuse him of being a partisan warrior on that in that room. That information is a groundwork for accountability for the president. But here in Wisconsin, what they do in Congress, we have 3 Democrats in Congress. They'll vote how they'll vote. The thing that we can do is we can make sure that this state is the blue firewall it was supposed to be in 2016. Even if Democrats impeach in Congress, there's almost no chance. I would say roughly 0.0% chance that Mitch McConnell will even hold an impeachment trial, to convict on articles of impeachment. So whatever happens with the House, I think there's a kind of moral and political decision that folks will make there. It's still going to come down to what happens on Election Day in 2020. And we need to use our fury and our heartbreak and our outrage and our disgust about what we see coming out of this White House and channel it into organizing effort on the ground. That's the only way we're going to win.
Now, Ben, I haven't put much stock in the thought of impeachment. I think perhaps for procedural reasons and for history's sake, we may need to go there. But I have no aspirations that this president's going to get yanked from his office by impeachment. And you're right. I think it will come down to the ballot box in 2020. And Ben, I've seen 4, 5, 6 different national media articles, and they're all pointing at this state, and they're all pointing at you, young man, and they're all saying Wisconsin will be pivotal. Hell, Trump could lose Michigan. Trump could lose Pennsylvania, but if Trump wins the state of Wisconsin, he could theoretically still win the Electoral College by 2 votes. Ben Wikler, how are you going to make that nightmare scenario not a reality?
It's not just my job. It is all of our job. Everyone listening right now, if you're in your car, if you're at your computer, if you're on your phone, sit back and know that it is on your shoulders. It is here in Wisconsin, we have this incredible gift of being in the tipping point state, the state that's going to tip the Electoral College one way or the other. And if we do our jobs right, this is where Trump's presidency ends. So here's the plan. The plan, first of all, it's organize, organize, organize. And that means building teams that can knock on doors, identify voters, talk to neighbors about what they care about. Frankly, we started months ago and doing it continuously till next year. Right now, we're fighting on issues. We've been fighting for Medicaid expansion. We actually have knocked 12,000 doors in Milwaukee County in the last 3 weeks. We're asking folks at the door, what do you care about? What do you think about how your elected officials are doing? And these are people that we don't know if they will vote for Democrats or Republicans. So talking to them now lets us know who we need to mobilize next year. That's why working in the off year matters, because you figure out who your voters are. It means working all the way through the spring elections, making sure we get a progressive on the state Supreme Court. It's a nonpartisan race. Republicans treat it as a heavily partisan race. We have to stop them, but we have to use next spring as a kind of dress rehearsal for the fall. So we can't do what happened this spring. Next year, we've got to be all hands on deck, hit the gas pedal to the metal, make the spring election a preview for what's in store, and get, we need voter turnout that looks like a fall election in the spring. Then we have the National Convention. We use that as an organizing springboard so that thousands of people who show up to volunteer for the convention in Milwaukee get trained as volunteers for the general election. And then we go into the fall, two fights at the same time. We've got to make sure Republicans can't get a veto override majority in the state legislature. If they get 3 seats in the Assembly and the Senate, they will be able to override every veto that Tony Evers makes. It'll be like Scott Walker's ghost came back to haunt us. So we've got to stop that from happening. And we've got to stop Trump. And it means, right now Trump is counting on having a year's head start to build his grassroots organizing, because Democrats are all fighting each other to get the nomination. But in Wisconsin, at the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, we can use this year to build the ground game that the presidential campaign will need. And then once we have a nominee, we'll be able to hand it off to them, and they'll be able to build on what we've already done. That's why we're organizing now. It's very unusual for state parties to actually have field organizers working with local volunteers and county parties and team leaders a year and a half out. But it's a necessity for the way we're going to win this thing. And that's the plan. And anyone who's listening right now can go to wisdems.org/volunteer and sign up and plug in.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That's Ben Wikler. He's the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Ben, last week, DNC chair Tom Perez was in Milwaukee. I saw you there as well, and they were bringing up, the empty words, the promises that Trump made. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier in our show today, Ben. Trump made all sorts of promises to working folks. He made all sorts of promises about insurance and the great insurance, and everybody would be covered. But ultimately, there is a grade to be had. People can look back over the last couple of years and say, hey, how successful was Trump in creating manufacturing jobs and lowering healthcare costs, and how did he help the dairy farmers in Wisconsin? Ben, in those areas, how do you say Trump did?
Trump gets an F-. This guy's he should have I break promises tattooed on his forehead. Frankly, the only promises Trump has kept are being a wild racist who tries to divide people. But he's been using that to try to distract people from the fact that he's picking everybody's pockets. Whether you're a white or black or Latino or anybody, he's coming for our health care. He's trying to rip up the efforts to get people enrolled in health care. He's pushing junk insurance plans. He's letting drug companies skyrocket their prices. He keeps announcing that there are huge price cuts coming. They never come. And his people, like Michael Cohen, have been taking huge payouts from drug companies to make sure that his policies favor the pharmaceutical company executives. Kimberly-Clark shut down its plant, 500 people out of work. Youngstown, Ohio, giant car plant closed. Car plant closures, auto industry layoffs are at the highest levels we've seen since the Great Recession right now under Trump. And for all his talk about how great the economy is, it's great if you are a shareholder in a pharmaceutical company, but regular folks are seeing their costs go up and their paychecks aren't. And I think, frankly, people know that, and they can connect the dots. They're almost on top of each other between Trump's policies to benefit people like him and his rich friends, and the way the rest of us are out in the cold.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We got a fine guest, Ben Wikler, chairman of the Democratic Party of the state of Wisconsin, at least for a few more minutes. Ben, you and I were comparing travel plans earlier today. Much like the Devil's Advocates, you're going to be in Detroit for the Dem presidential debates. You'll be in the room. We'll be in the spin room, the media room. But Ben, have you been to a presidential debate before? And obviously, you're a big shot. You're a Dem party chairman of a state party. But what do you hope will happen at the debate? What are you hoping for as an audience member in the audience that night?
So I think the last time I went to a presidential debate was in 2008 on the presidential campaign trail. It was a fascinating experience. This year, it's like no other year because all those Democrats understand how high the stakes are, and there are so many of them. I think the great thing about having a giant field of candidates is that it's the first time we've actually been able to change the subject in the national press from what Trump is doing and tweeting and saying to what Democrats want to do with the country. I think it is a great thing that the spotlight has shifted over to our folks and our ideas and our values because, frankly, all of our candidates, and some of them are, interesting, I'll say, all of our candidates are still vastly, vastly better than Trump. So what I'm looking for is candidates who will speak directly to the lived experience of people in Wisconsin and people across the country. Folks are at the end of the month trying to figure out how they're going to make ends meet. You want to be able to hear from Democrats who are running for president how what they're planning will affect you. And for all the kind of theory, for all the criminality that Trump is doing, I think people ultimately, they vote for someone who they think is on their side. And Trump has demonstrated with everything he does that he's against almost all of us. I think for Democrats, the challenge is showing that they mean business to be able to stand and fight for all the folks across the country who'll be voting in the primary and who'll be voting in the general election.
Now, Ben, night number one, Tuesday, July 30th, that will see Bernie Sanders versus Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, and many, many others on the stage. But the topic, I'm sure, at some point will turn to the topic of socialism. And these two very progressive candidates, I mean Warren and Sanders, they obviously are sort of in the same lane. But the rest of the field, a lot of them, and even Elizabeth Warren, will self-describe as a capitalist. I think Bernie calls himself a democratic socialist. But when it comes time for the Republicans to describe no matter who the eventual nominee is, they're going to call that person a socialist or a communist or a hell of a lot worse. Ben, how do we deflect the lies, the mischaracterizations of the Republicans, or does that just basically come with the territory?
Frankly, when we're debating the terms that they're using for us, we're losing. When we're talking about what we're going to do and what they would fail to do and have failed to do, how they're running in the wrong direction, putting them on defensive, that's when we're winning. And you could tell in 2018 that we had the momentum because Republicans were talking about how they cared about pre-existing conditions. They were so scared of our message that they were trying to adopt it and co-opt it.
Yes.
So I think, our job is to not get lost in the labels that the Republicans are trying to attach to us. It is to fight for the ideas and the values and the policies that we know inspire our folks, inspire their folks to come over to our side, confuse and demoralize the people on their side who realize that they're in the wrong. I just think we can't afford to be defensive this time. And I hope that the Democrats realize on that stage that it's not the moment to go after each other and say, if you say X, Republicans are going to pin you to the wall. Because Republicans, they tried to do that with Tammy Baldwin. They tried to call her a socialist. They tried to scare everybody about her health care plans, and it completely flopped because she was 100% authentic, stood her ground, and focused on what her proposals and what Republican proposals would mean for the people of Wisconsin. That's the winning formula. That's the way we win every election.
And Ben, we know night two will be Kamala Harris against Joe Biden, perhaps a little bit of a rematch. Joe says no more Mr. Nice Guy. But here's my question. I think we've already determined there are maybe 6 or 8 candidates that perhaps will make it through to the September round of debates, September 12th. And they'll do away with the 2-night events, and they'll do away with sort of open access groundswell nominated sort of candidates, and they'll get down to the nuts and bolts. Do you think it is time to winnow the field? And do you think if you do not qualify for the stage in September, do you think some of these candidates should step back and consider, let's say, running for the U.S. Senate, Ben?
Well, I will never try to argue someone out of running for the U.S. Senate. If we win the Senate, it is a game changer on so many levels, whether or not we win the White House. If Trump is still president, but we have the Senate, then he will not be able to keep packing the bench with these horrible right-wing judges.
Right.
And if we win the Senate and the White House, and we hold on to the House, then we'll actually be able to legislate. Which, man, the distant memory since we've had the chance to do that. Ugh. So, that piece is real. I will also say that it's such a sort of a personal decision about whether to run. I think that our side can get over-focused on the fact that there are so many candidates. I don't think it hurts us to have more messengers. I don't think it hurts us to have more people traveling. When a presidential candidate visits town, they dominate the local news. They carry our message to places where it otherwise wouldn't be. At some point, we probably hit the saturation point in Iowa and New Hampshire. But frankly, I like having Democratic presidential candidates visiting Wisconsin in July of 2019. I think it's great. So I think we saw, we beat Scott Walker after we had this huge field in 2017. If you remember how many Democrats were running for governor at this time. I think the big thing is making sure we have great candidates for every office, and that we don't wait until the primary is over to start organizing to stop Trump. That's why I'm obsessed with my job here at the state party, but I think it's something that anyone can act on to try to build the capacity for the general election now. And by all means, I hope folks are getting behind their favorite presidential candidates, but there's so much that we've got to do so that we're not behind the ball once we have our nominee. And what we do this summer, this fall, will make the difference next year.
Ben, what about the Wisconsin State Senate? The Assembly seems insurmountable. I'd certainly like to see us narrow that margin, but the Senate seems like a legitimate target. I think there is a feasible chance to win back the Wisconsin Senate. How do we do that? Do we marry these Republicans all the way down the ticket to Donald Trump? What do you think the strategy is to win back the Senate at minimum?
So I want to put a little cloud over your head, which is I think there's a challenging but worth fighting for path to retake the Senate. There's also an ominously possible path where Republicans can get veto override majorities in the state Senate and the state Assembly. If they pick up 3 seats in each chamber, they'll be able to override Tony Evers' veto pen, and they'll be able to lock in gerrymandering for another decade till 2032. I have a 7-year-old. He'll be graduating from high school before we get democracy back in Wisconsin, if they do that.
Wow.
And Republicans have been raising money hand over fist, more than $1 million for the legislative caucuses, far more than the Democratic side, to try to make that happen. So we've got to fight to defend our seats in the redder areas of Wisconsin, as well as go on the offense to try to kick out some of these Republicans in the Senate and the Assembly. And I hope we'll have candidates all over the state so that wherever they are, Republicans feel like they have to defend their turf.
Ben Wikler, Democratic Party Chair, great state of Wisconsin. Thank you so much for joining us on the air. I don't know if I mentioned, but my little buddy, he's a Detroit guy, man. We know how to have a good time on the road. You hang out with us, Ben. We guarantee a good time will be had by all. Ben Wikler, thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. I don't know if Ben knew how to accept gracefully an invitation to super cool partyness with the Devil's Advocates, but you just say yes.
You don't know what it's like until you do it. So Ben will find out.
Come join the club. It's an exclusive group. Not really. You can all party with us. The political party. It continues. 844-967-2789.
If I'm elected, you won't lose one plant. You'll have plants coming into this country. You're going to have jobs again. You won't lose one plant. I promise you.
You're a liar, Trump.
Transit worker Local 998 knows that cuts to transit service are cuts to our community.
I will get paid like $7.25 doing the same things I'm doing out here, and I'm getting paid $10.
You know, I'm a disabled veteran, and, this is my only way of getting around at this point.
I got a car at the house, but my mama don't like driving all the time, or she got work and stuff, so I rely on the bus, you feel me?
There is no other way. If the bus wasn't there, I would have to call somebody for a ride, and, I can't really afford to give people gas money for rides, and I don't have a vehicle, so these buses really help me out a lot.
Transit worker Local 998 also know who is responsible for these cuts, and so does the county.
Milwaukee knows that Chris Abley is not on our side. Milwaukee has learned that pretty clearly, and he's not going to be protecting the poor of this city or the working class of this city, and we know that.
Call Chris Abley at 414-278-4338 and tell him you support your community and Transit Workers Local 998.
The
Packing House, where you can experience the soulful dimensions of Joe Jordan and the Soul Trio every second and fourth Saturday of the month, where you can also enjoy live music 4 nights a week, Wednesday through Saturday, some of the best local talent around. It's never a cover charge. Schedule online at packinghousemke.com or give us a call at 414-483-5054. Great food, handcrafted cocktails across the street from the airport on Layton. Packing House, a family owned and operated since 1974.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, what condition my condition was in.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening. 844-967-2789.
Dominic, don't have time for any commentary. Let's go straight back to the phones.
Brock from Horicon, you are up. Thanks for calling. What do you got for us today?
I'm glad you had the Democratic Party of Wisconsin chair on. I keep forgetting what his name is. That's how often I hear from him.
Ben Wikler. Come on, I've had this guy on about every week or 2 weeks since he got elected.
You're doing your part. You're doing your part. Oh, and you changed my mind. I gave Tom Perez a 3 today. It was a big step for me, but I want some climate change stuff. So I'm beginning to warm up on him a little bit. I wouldn't get too excited, but I think a 3 is really like a regular person giving them a 9 or a 10. I'm hoping that they're going to figure out a way to reach some of these voters that are going to vote for Republicans no matter what. People do not understand the policies. People do not understand what Republicans want. People do not understand that they want to take away Social Security from everybody. They just don't seem to get that. And I don't know how you get them to understand it. I really don't.
Well, you tell them to listen to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We'll talk into perhaps reasonableness. Come back with us. Hopefully Brock gives this show more than a 3. I mean, we're at least a 4, a 5. Give us pie, 3.14.
We're an 11.
Come back. Another fine guest, Wisconsin State Senator Jeff Smith. More Devil's Advocates. Happy Friday.
To see what condition my condition was in.
If you missed something on the Devil's Advocates, don't worry. After you get over your shame, you can check out domandcroot.com. Podcasts and interviews updated daily.
5 your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. That means it could be you, your best man, your worst man. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
The 82nd Attorney General of the United States, Mr. Eric Holder.
You're talking about taking away from an Attorney General and from the executive branch core executive branch functions and moving them to the legislative side is something that's inconsistent with the federal Constitution and the Wisconsin state Constitution.
It will not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to noon on Real Resistance Radio.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
Transit worker Local 998 knows that cuts to transit service are cuts to our community.
I would get paid like $7.25 doing the same things I'm doing out here, and I'm getting paid $10.
You know, I'm a disabled veteran, and, you know, this is my only way of getting around at this point.
I got a car at the house, but my mama don't like driving all the time, or she got work and stuff, so I rely on the bus, you feel me?
There is no other way. If the bus wasn't there, I would have to call somebody for a ride, and, you know, I can't really afford to give people gas money for rides, and I don't have a vehicle, so these buses really help me out a lot.
Transit Worker Local 998 also know who is responsible for these cuts, and so does the county.
Milwaukee knows that Chris Abley is not on our side. Milwaukee has learned that pretty clearly, and he's not going to be protecting the poor of this city or the working class of this city, and we know that.
Call Chris Abley at 414-278-4338 and tell him you support your community and Transit Workers Local 998.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern. This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. It's been 2 years since former Governor Scott Walker signed the deal with Foxconn to spend as much as $10 billion on a new manufacturing complex that would employ up to 13,000 people. Since then, Foxconn has changed the type of factory it plans to build and shifted their employment plans away from a heavy emphasis on production workers. Foxconn has also missed some timelines that were announced originally. Foxconn also said last summer that they would invest $100 million in UW-Madison, but a spokesman for the university says there's been very little progress on that pledge. Forecast for Milwaukee and Madison. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a slight chance of rain. Lows around 69 degrees. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dominic, we got a fine guest eagerly anticipating coming along soon, I would hope. Live via phone, we will soon be joined by Wisconsin State Senator Jeff Smith. But in the meantime, we got you on the phones at 844-967-2789. I got you, Pizza Box. Welcome back.
Yeah, I remember when Jeff Smith ran for state chair and didn't even come close because he had the best ideas. So I want people to understand,
he stepped down from his candidacy the night before the election, to my recollection, and supported Martha Lanning. And I just noted there was a Facebook memory, I believe it's July 26th, 3 years ago, at the DNC in Philadelphia. On there is the former state party chair, Martha Lanning, obscuring the silent protest of a woman who was a Bernie Sanders delegate and felt like she had been silenced by the Hillary crew and wore the tape across her mouth. And apparently the DPW chair's job was to obscure that protester from the media.
Well, I'm going to be taking the tape off my mouth. You know how I usually do that, right?
I know. Up until now, you've been so filtered, Mike.
Right, man. Just let it out. Don't hold back, Mike.
I agree with Ben, but I also believe that you have to have like a message before you get to the door, and I think that you need to be more assertive with that instead of just doing the same thing we always do, which it sounds like to me it's the same type of organizing plan that we've always tried here, and it hasn't worked that well because we're not connecting groups of people. And when I mean groups of people, we're not connecting and supporting Latino efforts. We're not connecting and supporting black efforts in this country. And until white people step up and say, hey, man, we're going to all join hands together, we're not going to win this battle taking them on, in segments. And we can talk all about elections and everything, but and quite honestly, the DPW at this point, for not getting behind a platform that supports all that success that we had in the last congressional run. We're playing a game again, and we're running out of time. See,
well, Mike,
think
I
you
don't
need to
think
hit
it's
people
not
hard at
on the
door.
platform. It's how do you motivate people? I mean, look at the example of Puerto Rico very recently. I'd seen reports of between 400,000 and 1 million people. There are only like 3 million that live on the whole island of Puerto Rico. Mike, the people marched in the street and the governor resigned almost immediately. How do we get enough people? How do we get enough inertia that we can have a general strike, or we can have some sort of citizen-led action that is so powerful it cannot be denied or ignored?
Too many people in this country are comfortable and are not standing up for the people that are already in this effort. And I'll see you guys in Detroit. I'll be there with the Fight for 15, and that should be pretty good event for us. I know it'll draw from a lot of states from the Midwest and maybe even further. That's how you get it done. You get up and you support people in that kind of action, you know. These guys that I march with, they're not afraid to demand, okay? And that's what they did in Puerto Rico, and that's not what we're not doing in America. You know, Mitch McConnell, I've seen people outside your house. Nobody should be able to drive down anywhere 10 blocks in your neighborhood right now if people stood up and did what was right, which would be to come to your house and tell you to leave, man. No, not just the Senate. Just leave this country. Go to Russia. And they got places for you guys. Build that Trump Tower, and you can all live there happily ever after. I mean, we really need to. People need to understand that if you're going to wait till and just focus on another election without any action in between that, and I mean like Puerto Rico and Hong Kong and everybody else that's standing up. These people, until you're desperate. If you wait till you're desperate, it'll be too late, man. And there are a lot of desperate people needing help from people that are too comfortable in this damn country. And I'll leave it at that.
Your question is taken, Michael. Appreciate the call.
Mike, thanks, man. Always appreciate your calls and your passion. And I wish we had the mentality that they had in Puerto Rico. I mean, when people are in the streets, when commerce stops, then, the politicians can't just, nod their head and say, well, fake news. They can't just nod their head and say witch hunt. I mean, when everything stops because of your actions, then the spotlight is specifically on you. And I think to some degree, he's right. Yes, there's a lot of people that are comfortable, but there's also a lot of people jumping from one foot to another that are just trying to get through the day with the kids or perhaps the parents and the couple of jobs and and the drama and the circumstances that is life on this earth. And when the politicians, they purposefully make it, they muddy the waters, they don't want you involved, they want you busy doing other things. But when you see the kind of corruption and attitude of the governor of Puerto Rico, and certainly what we've seen here from President Trump, and look at the reaction, totally different from the citizen, not the citizens, but from those up here in the States versus those in Puerto Rico.
Are you suggesting, Dom, it might be time to drain that swamp?
I don't even want to use the vernacular. We just need to all agree that corruption and is not acceptable within a self-governing society. I mean, you just can't have it. You just cannot have the president and his administration and the Republicans in the Senate and the House running cover for what is just unabashed corruption. And at some point, because you say it, hey, if it was Hillary, if it was Obama Republicans, what would happen then? Well, of course, they would freak the F out. The guy wore a tan suit, and they could barely contain themselves. How does that compare? Where is the consistency of their criticism? Because, of course, it's all hollow. It's all false. They're going to try to hang on to that power until we pry it out of their, rhetorically, cold, dead hands. 844-967.
It sounded kind of threatening, Dom.
Speaking of threatening, we have Dan from Beaver Dam.
Dan, welcome back from the penalty box, man. You had a major misconduct.
Friday. Major misconduct, insinuating use of something on somebody apparently near or around their head area.
Yeah, we don't do that.
We don't do that. So, Dan, do you apologize for that? All right, man. Thank you.
Welcome back to the family, Dan.
We accept
the
him with
prodigal
open
son,
arms.
Dan, returns from Beaver Dam.
Right.
What do you got for us today, fella?
I get fired up. The thing about it is, I like what the Democratic Party chair has to say now. How do we do it? How do we implement it? how do you get through to people that do not use logic? How do you get through to people that are going to vote that way because it's almost like the Eddie Murphy movie where they're voting for a guy that died because Eddie Murphy's character has the same last name, he gets elected. I have no energy, Glenn Grossman and Scott Fitzgerald as my representatives. Are you kidding me? I think a pumpkin and a gourd could probably do a better job, or at least they'd screw stuff up less. I don't know why people vote for him. And when you ask people why do you vote for him, the stuff that they think that he's for, he's not for that. The voting record is public record. You can do this thing. It's called the internet. Al Gore invented it. You can go on there and just find like whatever in the heck you want to find. I mean, it's like a place you could store unlimited amounts of information just at your little old fingertips, even way back here in Dodge County in 1985. And they're just unwilling to do it. They don't have the basic curiosity of any living creature I have ever seen. Then,
well, they know though, Dan. But Dan, you're giving them too much credit for ignorance.
No. Yeah, no, it's fake. It's fake. It's fake. Like the rest of their stuff, they pretend they don't know, and that's the reason they haven't read the Mueller report.
They pretend they have integrity. They pretend they have morals until the Republicans in the White House.
Oh yeah. Oh, they don't want to. When the stuff they say. That's not stuff they're going to do. That's stuff that you're going to do. That's stuff everybody else should do because, they go to church 6 to 8 times a week, so it can't be them. It has to be everybody else. Yet all the problems, the one common denominator is them. So I would think by process of elimination, somebody would have, eventually assumed, hey, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe my voting and my ideas and my thoughts on minorities and women and kids and pick a subject are probably out of date and have been for, I don't know,
ever
4 or 5 decades. Yeah.
But Dan, they to vote in talking about evangelicals, old white men, old white women. Hell, Hillary Clinton did not even win a plurality of white women. Trump did. So we are seeing effectively white people turning out to vote for this racist president, and certainly not uniformly voting. I mean, it is a divided caucus. There is no homogenous group. But ultimately, it's the people that stayed home. Trump turned out his about the same level as Mitt Romney did. And Hillary Clinton could not turn them out in the very same way that Barack Obama did. And now we've seen what the alternative is. I would hope the electorate will take note and do something about it. Vote in mass. I mean, I hope every Wisconsinite votes, and I'll take my chances.
No doubt. Thanks for the call, man.
967-2789. Chris from McGuanago. Chris, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Hey.
Good, Chris.
You guys, just because people drive a truck and we're Republicans do not mean we're racist. You guys are the most judgmental, whiny bunch of people I've ever heard.
Then denounce the racist president, sir. Chris, denounce the racist actions of the president.
So, was he racist before he was president? No,
yes.
Not one thing came up, but no, he was not.
Sure he was. What about the birther movement he led against the prior black president, Chris?
Everybody fired up. No.
Chris, answer the question. The birther movement. The birther movement, Chris. Not a racist movement?
Trump led the birther movement. That's not a racist action by the now president, racist Donald Trump, sir?
Well, I guess in your eyes, yeah. I don't know. But
it's not in your eyes, Chris.
All right, Chris, here's one. Fancy Brian reminded me. How about the Central Park 5 and his reaction to that scandal?
Called for the death penalty for 5 innocent boys. Mostly because they were black.
At the time, did you know they were innocent?
He's still saying that he thinks they're guilty, sir, after a DNA exoneration. He said it as the president 2 months ago.
Telling African-American women to go back where they came from, Chris.
I'd say that too. If you don't like the country, like Alec Baldwin.
Now, if you go that, Chris, are you employed right now, sir? Do you have a place? How do you think HR would react to that, Chris?
Probably not good, but if somebody's sitting there denouncing, saying how crappy the country is, all that, this, that, the other thing.
No, not the country, the president.
The president, Chris.
It's our First Amendment gives us the right to criticize the president or any other damn thing. And if you don't like it, Chris, then you can go back. That should be the attitude, right? I mean, if you don't like the First Amendment, sir, go back to McGuanago.
I'd rather stay there than Madison with all you freaks. All you guys do, I listen to your
Hey,
shows
wait,
all the
man,
time.
I used to party in McGuanago. McGuanago ain't so cool either. I mean, it's got the lake.
Chris, you started this call by saying that we call people names. You started this call by saying how we call people names, and you just called us names.
But there you go. There it's back at you. But it's bad that I'm doing it.
Well, you criticized us for it, and then you engage in it.
Pardon me?
You criticize us for it, and then you engage in it.
But you do
Chris,
that every day. I listen to you guys every day.
Fair enough, man.
I heard you this
We
morning.
stir the pot a little on the radio, and we. I'm sorry, you go,
Country guy
Chris.
listening to the radio with rebel flags in their truck. Really?
Yeah, I know a couple guys like that. I met one at a Trump rally in Janesville, Wisconsin, sir.
I know a bunch of liberals who are just as bad too. I know a bunch of gang members that would shoot me if I'd walk.
You know a bunch of gang members, Chris? Who are you hanging out with,
Man, McGuanago's got pretty gangster over the years, man.
No, Milwaukee, buddy. Milwaukee.
Oh, you're hanging out in Milwaukee with the gangbangers, are you now, Chris?
No, but whatever. You guys, everybody who drives a truck's a racist, and then you're talking about abortion.
We never said that, man. We got lots of callers and friends that are truck drivers. What are you talking about?
If you drive a truck with a Confederate flag and a shotgun rack in the window, you might be a racist.
You might be, Chris. Do you have a Confederate flag in your truck?
You said all the Confederate flag truck driving. Who drives around with Confederate flag?
Do you think the Confederate flag
Literally,
is a symbol of
people do that, Chris.
racism?
Look around, man.
Chris, is the Confederate flag, in your opinion, a symbol of racism?
Yeah, no. I think it's part of history. I don't really agree.
Well,
with
racism is a part of history. That doesn't answer the question. It's yes, it is a symbol of racism, or no, it is not a symbol of racism.
The flag? I don't think the flag itself is. I think how people represent it is, yeah.
Chris, you seem like a reasonable guy. And I'd like to think I'm a reasonable
And
guy.
that's why I
And
listen
maybe
to you.
we
I
were.
like both points of the view. But sometimes you guys sit
Maybe-
there and just
Maybe if we were sitting at a bar having a beer right now, we might even like each other, Chris. But here's my point.
We might. I agree with some of the stuff you guys say, but when you're,
But Chris, here's
like, calling
a thought for
every
you, though.
all day, all I hear is every white male. I mean, geez, Louise, I'm sorry, I'm white.
It's not a
but you
white
don't
male.
know-
I'm a white male. I don't.
It's a
I
white,
don't
it's a white conservative, evangelical Christian that I hate everybody.
Then
I hear
denounce.
every day with you guys.
Then
Play
denounce
your stuff back and
the
listen.
Klansman president. Denounce the racially
Klansman
charged words and actions he takes, sir. Denounce the policy of taking little children away from their parents and keeping them in squalor in cages, Chris. And if you do that, then I'm going to draw a distinction and say Chris is one of the good ones. He's not like the rest.
Okay, we do have rules on how to get in the country too. You can't just run in with 5,000 people.
And if you break the rules, do you deserve to have your kids thrown in a cage? I mean, that's a misdemeanor, man. You're probably speeding right now down the highway, Chris. Do you deserve to have your children taken away for a misdemeanor, sir?
Even so, they're applying for asylum, Chris, and they have the legal right to do that.
So you think that they're in a cage right now? They're in like a legit cage.
Yeah, I've been to Homestead, Florida not so long ago, Chris. They are holding minor children in squalor, taken from their parents.
Cages. Like a dog cage. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I see
a
that.
little
And
bigger
they
than a
don't-
kennel. They got lots of them jammed in the same dog cage.
Do you agree with that policy, Chris?
I have not seen anyone in cages yet, but if I do, I might have a different point of view. But here's my deal.
Chris,
If you're
go
gonna come
Google.
over to the country.
Do me a
I'll
favor
Google right when I'm
and do this. Next opportunity you get. Google
Tell you what, I'm pulling over.
kids in
I will
cages.
check it out on my way to another job because I am working. Like not.
Well,
like
you
a lot
sound
of
like
you
a
people
hard-working
who-
man.
I am,
Chris,
I am
come
very
down to
much.
Brady Street tomorrow, dude, and I will buy you a beer, and we'll Google it together.
You know what? I'm busy tomorrow, but I'll take a rain check.
Come to Atwood Fest on Sunday, and I'll buy you a beer in Madison. Me and the rest of the liberal freaks. I got back-to-back parties, Chris. Appreciate the call, man. You got work to do and some Googling as well. Go do your homework, Chris. You seem like a reasonable guy, but here's what I would say. If you don't draw a distinction between yourself and the racial animus of this president, Chris, it's hard not to throw you in guilt by association. So if you're different, be different. Be different. I'm different than Dominic, thank God. He doesn't even believe in the higher power.
The what?
Come back
Come
with
on.
us. I see Profane Ronnie. It makes me a little nervous. Lots of good people lining up. It's a rock party weekend. Brady Street, Atwood Fest, and then Democratic presidential debate from Detroit Rock City. Where else would you listen than 1510 a.m. and Talk 92.7? We'll be right back with more of your phone calls. Your Friday grievances aired here.
County Executive Chris Avery has declared racism a public health crisis, but he cuts the bus route for mostly black families driven mostly by black drivers.
Milwaukee knows that Chris Abele is not on our side. Milwaukee has learned that pretty clearly, and he's not going to be protecting the poor of this city or the working class of this city, and we know that.
Call Chris Abele at 414-278-4338. Tell him you support and transit workers local 998, and ask him why is he making this public health crisis worse.
Our friends over at Madison Liquidators are expanding into a bigger, nicer space just off Pleasant View Road in Middleton to better serve their clients and better display their extensive collection of new and nicer used office furniture. Start online at madisonliquidators.com for their complete collection, or go see Kelly to help make your own office plan. madisonliquidators.com. Tell them you heard them on Talk 92.7 FM.
We the people, the hardworking 99% of men and women, only have a voice when we join together as one and amplify our message. Now is the time for all Wisconsinites to join We the People and raise our voices. Do you feel like you are wasting your money funding unaccountable consultants, unresponsive candidates, and their campaigns? Help us do something that really matters. Please join We the People. Give what you can so we can support progressive radio stations like this one using the public airwaves to educate Wisconsin about what we the people want for our state and remind Wisconsin's politicians that they work for us. Your donations to We the People at p4ppc.org, a registered, compliant IRS 501c3, will always be tax deductible, will always remain anonymous, and We the People pledge to spend 100% of donations educating Wisconsin on the issues our donors want discussed, giving individuals a voice in the collective message of We the People. Please give today at p4ppc.org. That's p4ppc.org. We the People need you.
The Devil's Advocates may not agree on much, but funny is funny.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the hardest working radio show in history. 844-967-2789.
Don, we'll get back to the phones momentarily. I'd just like to make one little thought clear for our buddy Chris from McWanago. Donald Trump, about a week and a half ago, started tweeting at these women of color, right? Send them back. And then he went to a rally in North Carolina. And if you believe the reporting, his campaign led the racist chants. And here's the part I'd like to point out to Chris. Donald Trump would rather that I perceive him, the left perceive him, the media, everyone not named Chris from McWanago perceive him to be a racist than have us talk about his pedophile buddy, Jeffrey Epstein, or the felonious behavior, the obstruction of justice that was soon to be detailed by Robert Mueller. So are you supporting the pedophile president, the felonious president, or the racist president? Chris, pick your poison.
I'll throw in a couple more. The fraudulent president. Or the treasonous president.
The emoluments clause breaking president. The campaign finance law breaking president.
The porn star paying off president.
It's secured by Michael Cohen.
Profane Ronnie, you are up. Thanks for calling, Ronnie. What do you got?
Hey, guys. I just had to address Chris and his little stammering response about the Confederate flag. When you put him on the spot, don't you think that it is racist? And he was like, the flag isn't racist, maybe some people's portrayal. And I'd like to remind him that the Confederate flag represented the South when the South said black people are 3/5 of a human being. So, like, that's what that flag represents. They wanted to keep people as slaves. And thank God they lost that war. But,
Ronnie, I'm not sure why these Confederate-loving racists from down south, why they don't fly a white flag. Because didn't the Confederacy, didn't they lose? A white flag of surrender seems more appropriate to me, Ronnie, but please continue.
It was at least the last one they flew.
Right. And the other thing is compare it to, since we've got all this Nazism shit or stuff from...
there you go again, Ronnie. Gotta cut you short.
Let's get
Ronnie,
Kurt in.
we're doing so good.
Kurt from Madison, you'll have the last word this hour. You got about a minute, my friend.
Keep it clean.
Doggone it. Anyway, Nick, I'm sorry, you're a white privileged male.
It's not Nick for a change. It was Chris from McGuanago.
Oh, sorry, Chris. Oh, they're all the same to me. Anyway, Chris, you're white privileged. You got your head buried in the sand. All you have to do is make a small, teeny, tiny effort to either Google it or buy a newspaper or listen to the radio, and you become informed. Here's the thing. All these Republicans think that if Trump goes down or a senator goes down, it's a direct reflection of themselves, which makes them a cult. They cannot think as independents like Democrats do. This is why Democrats fight with one another, because we fight on policy and what we believe. Republicans just step in line and they follow their master leader, dictator. So I don't feel sorry for any of these people. They're all losers. I'm sorry. I know you guys wouldn't say you're too nice, but I will. They're losers. And that Confederate flag should have a label sewn on the bottom of it as loser.
What gave you the impression I had any qualms calling someone a loser? That's the nicest thing I say about Dom most weeks. Come back with us. The happy hour, it's going to commence right now with some good people. Peggy Adams and Jen Johnson doing a little fundraiser for East High School in Madison.
If politics is boring, you're doing it wrong. Check out more at domandcroot.com.
Because I'm going to be working for you. I'm not going to have time to go play golf. Believe me.
County Executive Chris Avery has declared racism a public health crisis, but he cuts the bus route for mostly black families driven mostly by black drivers.
Milwaukee knows that Chris Abele is not on our side. Milwaukee has learned that pretty clearly, and he's not going to be protecting the poor of this city or the working class of this city, and we know that.
Call Chris Abele at 414-278-4338 and tell him you support and transit workers local 998 and ask him why is he making this public health crisis worse.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
Impeachment threat, safe third country. I'm Barbara Cusack. President Trump weighed in on new impeachment threats coming from the democratically controlled House, where 100 lawmakers are now in favor. Trump said the Democrats want to go fishing.
It's a disgrace that they're doing it. They're doing it for political reasons. And most of them, many of them are admitting that. It's politics. And frankly, it's a very sad thing for our country.
The House Judiciary Committee is now suing for secret grand jury information from the Mueller report to help them decide whether to pursue articles of impeachment. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who has been hesitant when it comes to impeachment talk, made one thing clear.
I'm not trying to run out the clock.
A safe third country immigration asylum agreement was signed today between the U.S. and Guatemala, as correspondent Abby Phillip reports.
This is a change to how the U.S. would be dealing with asylum for migrants coming up from Central America. It would force them to first claim asylum in one of the countries that they pass through, like Guatemala, before getting to the United States.
T-Mobile got the Justice Department go-ahead today on its $26.5 billion takeover of Sprint. Correspondent Ann Cates takes a look as the trading week ended with gains.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 51 points. The S&P 500 closed up 22 points, while the Nasdaq soared by 92 points to new all-time highs for both indexes. For the week, the Nasdaq and the S&P advanced about 2%.
President Trump vowed to slap tariffs on Apple's Mac Pros if the company shifts production of the computer from Texas to China. The pledge made in a tweet today rebuffs Apple's attempt to shield its products from taxes being imposed on goods made in China as part of the Trump administration's trade war. U.S. economy slowed sharply in the second quarter, even as consumers stepped up their spending. The gross domestic product grew at a 2.1% annual rate in the April-June quarter. That is down from a 3.1% gain in the first quarter. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Naomi Croth here. My family has owned and operated Bachman Construction since 1954. As an all-in-one design-build commercial contractor, Bachman Construction works with project owners from beginning to end of each project to unify responsibility and streamline communication. We provide more opportunities for owner participation and allow for better cost control in the design and construction of a project. For projects big and small, Bachman Construction is your design-build choice for collaborative construction services.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and my family owns Madison Liquidators, a company with sustainability as our business model. We are excited to announce that we are moving into a bigger, nicer location, allowing us to serve you better with expanded inventories of both new and used office furniture. Right now, we will give you a great deal because we would much rather move any of our current inventory into your office than our new space. Check out our complete inventory online at madisonliquidators.com or come make a deal off Pleasant View Road in Middleton before moving day.
After nearly 60 years off the tracks, the world's largest steam locomotive roars again.
With plumes of smoke billowing into the sky, the only operational big boy steam engine in the world left Wisconsin bound for West Chicago. It's on a journey across the Midwest to mark the 150th anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869. Just 25 of the big boy engines were built in the early 1940s, logging more than 1 million miles on Western railroads. Number 4014 was retired in 1961, but recently restored, and thousands are gathering to take in the sights of the 600-ton locomotive.
I think the smoke and the noise. Yep.
The train heads to Iowa and Nebraska next. I'm Joe Ramsey.
Guatemala Soccer Federation says 9 players have been denied travel visas to the U.S. for a youth tournament next month. The federation said in a statement the boys turned in all the required paperwork and showed up for their appointments at the embassy today before having their applications rejected. I'm Barbara Cusack.
The choice of a lawyer.
5 your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on News Talk 1510 a.m. Start your weekday off with the Earl Ingram Show from 7 to 9 a.m. Next, it's The Forum with Sherwin Hughes from 9 to noon. Then from 12 till 2, it's the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. Then from 3 to 6, it's The Devil's Advocates. At 6, it's Jocasta Zamaripa, Maggie Dawn, and Unheard Of with Brandy Grayson. Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at newstalk1510am.com. For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. The River West 24 bike race starts tonight in Milwaukee's River West neighborhood. The 24-hour bike race goes until tomorrow evening at 7. Hundreds of cyclists, many in costume, will be racing through the streets of the River West neighborhood. Thousands of spectators will be lining the streets and congregating at the checkpoints. The main route goes up Booth and Pierce Streets and down Humboldt Boulevard. For more information and to volunteer, go to riverwest24.com. forecast for Milwaukee and Madison. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a slight chance of rain. Lows around 69. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with a slight chance of rain and highs in the mid-80s. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN, Wisconsin's political talk.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the Friday 5 o'clock happy hour. We made it.
We're here.
And we got some fine guests that have joined me here in the studio, Broadcast Bunker 2.0. I've got Peggy Adams to my right and Jen Johnson to her left, both from Solidarity Realty, fine sponsors of this fine program and all the fine programming here on Talk 92.7 FM. But Dom, they're here to talk about something philanthropic, something near and dear to especially Peggy's heart. First of all, welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
All right, thanks for coming
Peggy,
out.
Wanted to have you start the conversation, at least in regards to who's Milton McPike and why is that pertinent to this conversation?
Sure. Well, again, thanks for having us. And again, this is really near and dear to my heart. Milton McPike actually was my uncle, and forgive me, I'm a little winded here, kind of ran up. But anyways, he was the principal of East High School for 23 years, and he definitely took that school and made it into a school that we were all proud of. I am an East Side alumni, and I will say that, again, I was extremely proud of going to the school, and he was a big part of what made that school. He was the principal for 23 years.
Wow.
Although he did start at West High School as the assistant principal. So kind of had a long journey here in Madison schools, and as we know, they're kind of hurting these days. So I figured, if we just step in and kind of help support the cause, maybe we can actually push this through and have a school that we're proud of.
Now, Peggy, anyone that's been to Madison that's driven in on East Washington Avenue may have seen the big castle-looking school on the right-hand side. How old is East High School? I'm not looking for precision, but it's not a brand new school. I mean, it's like a fortress over there.
We call it a castle. It definitely has that appeal, but it definitely needs help. I mean, it's been a long time since any money has been invested in the property and the school itself. So, there's a referendum or a expansion here that we're here to talk about, and I'll let Jen talk about that for a second. But as you were mentioning, the school has really, really tanked, in my opinion. It's falling apart. It doesn't have air conditioning. The gym facilities just aren't conducive for the athletes. And as we all know, athletics are a really important part of school and kind of teaching team students how to become members of teams and to support each other. And so I think this is really important.
And Jen, I'm sure you had something you wanted to add. Jen, to my immediate right here.
Hello. Yes, for sure. So this kind of started out as, if you guys are familiar with Central Park, it was renamed to McPike Park this last year. And there's an event there every summer, the Central Park Sessions, and they are now the McPike Park Sessions, or the Sessions at McPike Park. So on...
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Jen, but what's that mean?
It is
it music or dance or party? What is it?
Music, dance, party, food, beer.
Hey, I like that.
I think you checked most of the boxes we were looking for. Please continue.
We've got it all. So this year, on the first one of the year, on August 7th, we are actually going to have Peggy and some of her family up there on stage to do a tribute and dedication to Milt in between the first two sets of actually the band's going to be the old 97s, and they're pretty great. So she's going to do a little tribute. And then what we really want to do is just from today on kick off getting some of the funds needed for the McPike Fieldhouse at the East High School.
Now, I can appreciate a private fundraising effort, but begs the question, or at least I think it begs the question, what about the city? What about, traditional funding mechanisms? Why has East High School been left behind in this regard?
Well, if you want to ask me, I would look at their minority rate and kind of have your answer right there. It seems as though the predominantly white schools definitely get the support, and unfortunately, others don't. So, as you know, with our governor, our previous governor, he took a lot away from us, and things just haven't been invested. But property values are going up, as we know, as realtors. And, it really is time for us as Madisonites to get together and really support our schools.
It seems like a double whammy to me. I have the good fortune, and, through some choice of decision, we chose to live in Middleton. In Middleton, because of the lake and a few other factors, has a very high tax base. So first and foremost, just through the regular property tax calculations, it's already doing better than many neighboring communities. And then whenever it's time to perhaps upgrade the high school or the middle school, referendums have successfully passed. I think there's a $60 million middle school. There was another $169 million referendum to improve the high school, build a new elementary school. And I compare, I got my kid reading the minutes to me last night from a newsletter from Milton Schools.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, even my son thought that was a pretty grandiose investment in facilities. How is there so much disparity between a district like Middleton and a district like East Madison High School?
It boils down to the money. In general, the average income in Middleton is a lot higher than it is in Madison, although they are slowly but surely kicking the poor folks out. They can't even afford to live in Madison here anymore. So I do think with time things will change just because more money's coming into the city. However, we don't have time to wait. It's not fair that we're kicking these folks out. It's not fair that the East High School students get a lesser education than the Middleton folks. I did I spent a year in Wanakee and went to their high school so I can compare the two. And, Wanakee's great schools. Everybody loved them. I thought they were awful. I thought they were...
In what regard?
Well, one is they were extremely cliquey. So I wasn't born there. I wasn't raised there. So I was ousted as soon as I got there. Their curriculum's also extremely different. So my curriculum at East did not transfer over very well to Wanakee. So it really put me behind. And it just seemed like the minute I stepped foot in that door, they saw me come in and said, "Oh no, not another East High School student here," and kind of gave me a hard time.
But Peggy, as you know, Wanakee is at least financially speaking, in terms of facilities, Wanakee in this neck of the woods, a thriving district. They got great facilities, and that is a burgeoning, a growing community with ever increasing tax base. And, it seems like and I hate to make this a race issue, but when I was a kid, Madison was a predominantly white city. And now, at least when you reference the school districts, it is a majority minority school district, or at least it is to my understanding. And we talk about white flight in the Milwaukee market quite often. We talk about the segregation in the Milwaukee area. But there's been white flight here in Madison.
Oh, yeah.
They have moved out to these suitcase communities like Wanakee, like Middleton. Verona certainly is thriving. But the core of this city seemingly has been left behind. Folks, you're listening to The Devil's Advocates. Got a couple of fine guests here with me in Madison in the Broadcast Bunker 2.0. We got Peggy Adams and Jen Johnson. They are both with Solidarity Realty, but they're not here in their professional capacity. They're here to encourage people to get behind the facility investment needed at East High School in Madison. We're talking about $3.2 million, which for any individual, unless Chris Abley's listening, for any of the individuals listening right now, that is a substantial amount of money on an individual basis. Mm-hmm. But collectively, what are you guys hoping to accomplish with lots of small donations?
Well, one of the big projects they're doing is the McPike Fieldhouse. That's the big one. They started asking for public support just this past spring. So far, they've raised a good amount of the $3.2 million that it was going to take to do this, and we're short $250,000. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much money, and we feel like the community can help pick up and, kick into this. This field house, when it's done, will be able to house all of the students in one spot in that high school, which is not possible right now. It'll also make East High able to host WIAA events, which they also cannot do.
So currently they cannot use their own facilities for hosting inter-high school athletic events.
No. Nope.
Not enough room.
Yeah.
So what has
all
been...
the students will be in one spot now. This will be the only place that they can all gather to be.
I do want to jump in real quick and just thank the anonymous donor that donated a large chunk. I believe it was 1.5 million.
Wow.
Came from a single donor.
Wow. Well, I didn't want to say anything, but you're welcome.
Yeah.
May not have been me. I might be taking false credit here, like the president often does.
Hey, there you go.
That's fantastic. But how do we get to this point, I guess, is my question. To have a public school have to also then rely on public donations. Has there been discussions with the school board, with the city, with the state? How is it now that we are talking about this right now and not having what perhaps we would think is not proper funding and addressing these issues? Because of course, as you mentioned, if you can't get the other schools to come in, you're missing out on other revenue opportunities for the school as well. What have those that are in power, those that are in charge, what has been their position on this?
Well, that's as you know, the old Walker boy was taking away milk from the poor kids at school. So you can only imagine them wanting to actually give us money when they constantly took it away from us. So, I wish I had a better direct answer at who to point the fingers at, but I think right now it's just time for us to admit where we're at. And I definitely believe that the crime rate is a direct reflect against our school system and the education that our kids are getting. And, it can only better the whole community for us to get together and do this.
I've always appreciated, we know your broker, Darcy Haber, quite well. I appreciate the activism that's demonstrated and, not just allowed, but sort of encouraged through your workplace at Solidarity Realty. Does the boss know this little activity's going on?
Yes, actually, she is aware. We brainstormed this right in front of her, so she didn't object.
No. And with that being said, she's okay with anybody dropping off donations at our office. So if you ever want to go ahead and instead of sending your donation into East directly, you can stop into Solidarity, 1148 Williamson Street, and we will gladly take those and make sure they're delivered to the school.
Now, the fundraiser, tell people again how they get involved personally if they want to attend the big event. When is the McPike event, if you will, again, Peggy?
We are looking at, is that the 7th?
Yeah, it's Wednesday the 7th.
Wednesday the 7th at 8:40 is actually when we're going on. We plan on having a booth, probably just a little picnic table or something on side of the main stage, and you can stop by and see us at that time. What I'm actually working on right now is my aunt is going through some of my uncle's old stuff, and we're seeing if we can raffle something off. He was a big woodworker, jewelry maker. He's got a lot of really cool things. So there might even be a raffle included in this.
I would wonder if there's any old Pergolders out there in the audience right now that would like to get involved. We would encourage them to do so. Some will not be able to attend the event on August 7th. If people want to get involved online, if they want to give money, it seems like that's what you're looking for, is money to help support the building out of this facility, because East High School really doesn't have the resources allotted to them. If people want to start online and give, how did they do so, guys?
I will put a direct link on our Facebook page. It's through the Foundation for Madison Public Schools. There's a link there to donate online if you'd rather go that route and not drop off any funds in our office. It's a very long link, so I will put that on our website and our Facebook page.
Come on, you guys are fiduciaries. You can be trusted with money.
Of course.
Segregated accounts.
We do.
Peggy, Jen, I see we're about out of time. Before we are completely out of time, anything we forgot to ask, anything you think the audience should know that would encourage them to support this effort?
Just that we are almost there. Only $250,000, not much. We know that within a few months in our amazing neighborhood and community that we can get the rest of this money together.
We admire your activism. Please get involved, even if you weren't a poor golder. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. It's the happy hour. It's Friday. We're trying to do good deeds around here.
If they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh. And know they love you.
I went to better schools than they did. I was a better student than they were.
Oh, good for you.
Hi, I'm Anton Capella. As Chief Technology Officer at Five Nines, I work hard to be a leader in my industry, and I know the challenges posed by changing technology. It's my priority to make sure your network is up over 99% of the time. There's no question, trying to manage your own business.com.
We the people, the hardworking 99% of men and women, only have a voice when we join together as one and amplify our message. Now is the time for all Wisconsinites to join We the People and raise our voices. Do you feel like you are wasting your money funding unaccountable consultants, unresponsive candidates, and their campaigns? Help us do something that really matters. Please join We the People. Give what you can so we can support progressive radio stations like this one, using the public airwaves to educate Wisconsin about what we the people want for our state and remind Wisconsin's politicians that they work for us. Your donations to We the People at p4ppc.org, a registered, compliant IRS 501c3, will always be tax deductible, will always remain anonymous, and We the People pledge to spend 100% of donations educating Wisconsin on the issues our donors want discussed, giving individuals a voice in the collective message of We the People. Please give today at p4ppc.org. That's p4ppc.org. We the people need you. Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
Ass, grass, or cash, nobody rides for free. Dom and Crew are the Devil's Advocates.
And welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and on Facebook. We are on Twitter at Devil Radio, and you can always join us. It's a freaky Friday. Air your grievances at 844-967-2789.
And let me thank our most recent guests, two fine ones, Peggy Adams and Jen Johnson, with Solidarity Realty, this effort to help build a field house for East Madison High School. They need about $250,000. Consider helping them out. This Milton McPike event, that will be August 7th. Hope to see you there. But 844-967-2789. Hope to hear you on the radio right now. Dial with your Friday grievances. We air them here. Let's get the momentum going again, Dom.
Dick from Madison, happy Friday. What do you got for us today?
No grievance. Dick. I'm totally down with your last guest. I mean, I'm a graduate of West High School in Madison, and it's in ill repair. It's falling apart. Had a reunion last summer. When we walked through it, it appalled me what it looks like. These two schools are important to this city, very important, and I'm down with anything. Hey, this is such a cool thing. It really needs to. Madison East it needs to be saved and rent. I mean, I don't know how to tell you guys. It just breaks my heart.
Don't you think
things falling apart?
Dick, don't you think there are enough successful alumni, be it East High School, West High School? I mean, shouldn't we step up as a community and, be true to our schools, as the case may be?
Yeah, Tammy Baldwin went to West. Come on. Get on board and get this done. These two schools need to be renovated and taken care of Yeah, they just absolutely do. It's heartbreaking to hear what's happened. And I saw it firsthand last summer. I did a walkthrough on that school with a principal that looked like he was a student. But
well, the older we get, Dick, you know what I mean? Hey, thanks for the call, man. We got to squeeze one more in here before the bottom of the hour. And our pal Terry Regano, owner of the Roman Coin here on Brady Street, she's going to pop in, talk about what's happening on Brady Street tomorrow. But right now, Pete from Milwaukee, you know about Brady Street. Welcome back, Pete. What do you got?
Hey, Pete.
Oh, okay. What I'm trying to say, I guess, is that this is what you get when you get this supporting two school systems. The system of private schools, which shouldn't be supported, and our public schools. Our public schools are suffering, especially areas where the children are in poor conditions. It's ridiculous. We should straighten this out. Every kid in this state deserves a good education, rich or poor. That's exactly what they should get, and that's ridiculous. We shouldn't be funneling money to voucher schools. They should be out. If people want voucher schools, let them pay for them.
You know, Pete, I know I've told this story on the air recently and appreciate your call. Have a great weekend, buddy. But I got a friend who is a school administrator, went up to the Wisconsin State Capitol and met with Scott Fitzgerald and Robin Voss. And these Republicans let them in on a little secret. And the secret was they don't have to raise the aid to schools because the good schools, they'll do it through referendum. And if you don't have the resources,
too bad.
Republicans didn't like you much anyways.
Terrible.
Come back with us. A good friend, a fine sponsor. She is Terry Regano from the Roman Coin. We'll be right back getting ready to celebrate a little Brady Street. 3 years on the street, Tom.
I can't even believe it. We're going to go live on Brady Street.
3 Brady Street festivals, 2 years on the street, I guess more accurate.
What do we got? We got Earl Ingram Jr. doing his regular show live from noon to 2 p.m. tomorrow. And
Joe Costa
Joe Costa going live as well. And we'll see what happens after 3 p.m.
You know, we might all go live.
No.
We'll do it live. Come back with us and a good friend, Terry Regano. It's Friday. I got no big grievances right this moment.
Politics is boring, you're doing it wrong. Check out more at DomandFruit.com.
Five Nines, your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez, I got to ask you, in what percentage did the fact that Real Resistance Radio, WRD 1510, the fact that you can come after bar with us on Brady Street, Tom, how much did that factor into the site selection of Milwaukee, sir?
There's that old saying, what's good for General Motors is good for America. What's good for Resistance Radio is good for Wisconsin and good for America. So it was huge.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
County Executive Chris Avery has declared racism a public health crisis, but he cuts the bus route for mostly black families driven mostly by black drivers.
Milwaukee knows that Chris Abley is not on our side. Milwaukee has learned that pretty clearly, and he's not going to be protecting the poor of this city or the working class of this city, and we know that.
Call Chris Abley at 414-278-4338 and tell him you support and transit workers local 998 and ask him why is he making this public health crisis worse.
Across Wisconsin, there are 81 right-wing talk radio stations spewing 235 hours a day of conservative ideology every day. And then there's me and my team, the most passionate and diverse radio lineup of political opinion leaders in this nation. We counter propaganda with facts, 16 hours every weekday, but now we need your help. It is time to build Talk 1017 in Milwaukee, a 24/7 rapid response platform for Dems, progressives, and reasonable others. A brand new FM signal covering 1.8 million Wisconsinites. I own the license, but I need an accredited investment partner right now to help complete the vision. Call me at the station or email crute@talk927fm.com. That's crute@talk927fm.com. Investments may be subject to an FDC 506C filing.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. If you think you're ready to check out a wiener dog costume contest or a dachshund derby, German Fest is the place to be this weekend. The Festival of German Culture is going on at the Summerfest grounds in Milwaukee through Sunday evening. You can enjoy German food, beer, music, fireworks, lumberjack competitions, and a Mardi Gras show on Saturday evening. For more information, go to GermanFest.com. And the Brewers were off yesterday. They start their biggest series of the year so far tonight at Miller Park with the Cubs. The Crew start the weekend in third place, 2 games behind the Cubs and the Cardinals, who are tied for first. Forecast for Milwaukee and Madison tonight, mostly cloudy with a slight chance of rain, lows around 69.
The Devil's Advocates. We drink when we toast. We toast when we drink.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That giggling young lady you hear in the Brady Street studios is our good friend and fine sponsor, Terry Regano from the Roman Coin.
Hey, Crudy.
Terry, welcome back to the studio.
Thanks. How are you?
It is a Brady Street weekend. How would you expect them doing? I'm or anything.
Yeah.
But how many Brady Street parties have you been to?
You know, I was trying to figure out today, how many is it of these new ones? Is this the 15th year, maybe?
I think Steph's been, my wife Steph is the executive director on Brady Street here. She's been doing at least 10 or 11.
Yeah. Well, it'd be nice to know what it is.
Yeah, but
the original festival started 1970, and they went for 11 years to 1981. And the last 2 years, 80 and 81, it was kind of poorly managed, and the neighborhood got a little upset, and so went to the alderman, and that was the end of it until we started them up again. I think in 2004, maybe.
Started with like a cheese tent, and then kind of grew from there.
Yeah, it was a cheese fest.
And my impression is the partying on Brady Street's never been better. I mean, last year was a hell of an event. Tell us about, for those not familiar, Terry, tell the people about some of the highlights when Brady Street closes down and the party begins.
Oh.
Yeah, what are your favorite events if you're going to take a walk on Brady Street? Because I know you're working hard at the Coin. I've seen lots of beer and liquor distributors
Yeah,
on
I
the
don't
street.
get too far off the corner. I think one of the greatest things is just the people watching.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just sit on any corner and watch the world go by, and it is amazing that you're going to see everything. And we have an eclectic neighborhood.
Everything?
Everything. we have an eclectic neighborhood to begin with, but it's so diverse. I mean, everybody comes down here. Everybody's having a good time.
And everyone's having fun. There's a lot of love in the air here on
there
Brady
sure
Street.
is. There sure is.
Let me rephrase. Dominic, what are your favorite Brady Street party events?
Well, the Cream City Drag Queen show is by far for me the most entertaining part. It's at night, I believe 9 or 10 o'clock on the far west side. I mean, the whole street's shut down. Like 10, 11 blocks are closed down. There's 4 music stages, I think. There's all sorts of entertainment and vendors and food. It goes all day. And the coolest thing about this, which a lot of props to everybody involved in this, is right now there's a Milwaukee County bus driving by. Come bar time tonight, this street will shut down. Get your cars out of here, people. Your cars are not allowed.
Oh, yeah, they're going to be towed.
They will be towed. And then, boom, this thing pops up, party all day, and at Saturday night, Sunday morning, early, the thing shuts down. You drive down here on a Sunday morning, it's like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, and that's because your wife is on top of things.
Yes.
Seriously, I mean, she has me text her every year to let her know when the street sweepers come through so she knows that they've done their job.
That's when you know.
Yeah.
Steffi is a woman that knows how to clean up a mess, if you know what I'm saying.
She does an amazing job with this event.
Now, not like you need specials during Brady Street, but are you guys doing anything special for the event down at the Roman Coin? PBRs on tap, anything going on special this weekend?
Yeah, well, we'll have all our draft beers, but we kind of limit our selection of beers in can because it can go outside. So we just load up with about maybe 6 or 7 different beers. So Pabst, of course, because we're an original Pabst Tide House, is our biggest seller.
And in preparation, I mean, you kind of changed the whole deal because there's so many people. There's like 50,000 people rolling into Brady Street, and you restock all the coolers.
And that's just in the Roman Coin.
Yeah. No, because there's no glass allowed on the street, we pull everything out. Like tonight, I've got a crew that will swap out all the glass, put in all cans, and that's what we start with. Yeah. And we go from there. My cooler right now, you can walk about a foot into it, my walk-in cooler, and that's it. It's to the ceiling. Yeah.
Yes. Now, Terry, I also understand Casamigos tequila is also kind of floating around the street. You know, it's one of my favorite these days.
It's one of our sponsors, and I got some in just for you, Dom.
I will see you there in about 25 minutes.
Now, Terry, I understand that Dominic used to fill in occasionally and do a shift here or there behind the bar.
He did.
And then every so often, one day a year, he gets back behind the bar, apparently for Brady Street. Are you comfortable with Dominic Salvia tending bar in your establishment?
I sometimes wonder, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Terry.
Gotta love Dom.
Now, does that diminish the crowd or enhance the crowd? Do more come in to see him?
Come on.
Or does he shake a fist and chase people away?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
I'm an attraction, man.
Yeah, he is.
Just ask me, I'll tell you. Terry Regano.
Now, do you make him... I was going to ask, do you make them stand on some phone books so people can see them?
Oh, come on.
Come
on.
He makes
Turn on the red light, have them stand in the front window?
The Drag Queen show. This would be the time to do it tomorrow. Terry Regano, owner of the Roman Coin, a friend and sponsor of the Devil's Advocates. Terry, thank you so much for coming around. So what are your hours tomorrow, the big party day? Are you open any later? What time do you open?
We'll be open at 11
a.m.
and stay open till closing.
Until they tell you got to go home.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for coming around, Terry. Thank you for
Thanks,
your
you
support,
guys.
as
Love
always.
you.
Love you too, girl.
Go see our girl, Terry Regano, at the Roman Coin.
Roman Coin!
It's not just a bar, it's an attitude. Thank you, Terry. We'll be right back.
Thank
Another
you.
good friend, Maggie Dawn. She'll preview her show, Dawn of the Resistance. And I got a bone to pick with her about her assessment of Mueller's testimony. Come back with us, and a good friend, Maggie Dawn. Thank you, Terry Regano. See you tomorrow on Brady Street.
I've not yet begun to defile myself.
Regano's Roman Coin.
County Executive Chris Avery has declared racism a public health crisis, but he cuts the bus route for mostly black families driven mostly by black drivers.
Milwaukee knows that Chris Abley is not on our side. Milwaukee has learned that pretty clearly, and he's not going to be protecting the poor of this city or the working class of this city, and we know that.
Call Chris Abley at 414-278-4338 and tell him you support and transit workers local 998 and ask him why is he making this public health crisis worse.
The second Democratic presidential debates will air live on WRRD 1510 AM and Talk 92.7 FM. July 30th and 31st, the Devil's Advocates will provide on-the-ground Detroit Rock City coverage 3 to 7 p.m. Central Time, and then live debate to air 7 to 9 with limited commercial interruptions thanks to the Teamsters Local 200. Dems' second presidential debate, Devil's Advocate style, July 30th and 31st, exclusively on WRRD 1510 AM and Talk 92.7 FM.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com.
Our friends over at Madison Liquidators are expanding into a bigger, nicer space just off Pleasant View Road in Middleton to better serve their clients and better display their extensive collection of new and nicer used office furniture. Start online at madisonliquidators.com for their complete collection, or go see Kelly to help make your own office plan. madisonliquidators.com. Tell them you heard them on Talk 92.7 FM.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. Well, we're going to have a fine guest, Maggie Dawn, host of Dawn of the Resistance, her live show coming up in just 20 minutes. Also, she is the Milwaukee County Corporation Counsel. Maggie, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates.
Hey, Dom. What's up, Mike? How you guys doing?
I'm doing very well, except in that I took great issue with your assessment of Mueller's testimony on your show yesterday. So I'm glad you're here today so I can tell you why you're wrong.
You can try, buddy. You can try. Better men have. They usually lose.
Better men than I?
Yeah. Which isn't setting the bar particularly high, but take your best shot, my friend.
Now, you called this testimony by Mueller a disaster. Please, in your own words, describe what you thought of Mueller's testimony.
For one, boring. I think the hope of the Democrats was that he would help translate what was very legal, easy terminology into digestible and understandable language for the American public. And he not only refused to do that, but I think his overall demeanor and the manner in which he answered questions didn't help clarify what the report said, but if anything, bored people to death and I think made the case for impeachment weaker. That's it.
Well,
soundbite.
Let me say, first and foremost, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but you are wrong.
I think you just said she's wrong.
Well, let me see if I can make my point. You were expecting, and I was certainly hopeful, and don't get me wrong, I said a few times on the air, I would love to see very sound-biteable versions of Mueller, for the 6 o'clock news. That was the highest aspiration. But here's what I think he did accomplish. I felt like in terms of comparing it not to a made-for-television event where, at one end of the spectrum you got, throwing Christians to the lions and we're trying to meet up with some sort of standard of entertainment. But what if the standard was the courtroom, Maggie?
Yeah, but
as
the court
testimony
that's
in a court
not the
of
analogy,
law,
Mike.
was that credible? Why is that not a apt analogy?
That's not the analogy. The analogy is what is public opinion. If you want to build a case for impeachment, how Americans view and understand the conclusions that Robert Mueller came to, which I think are a very clear indictment of the president's very evident obstruction of justice on numerous occasions. And what happened yesterday didn't move the needle. It won't move the needle. And in that way, that's why I call it a failure. I never expected it to be an interesting, scintillating, Hollywood-esque movie version of the Mueller report. I am stunned by, yet again, Democrats not understanding the stage that they're on and not understanding how to answer questions. A complete lack of coordination amongst the Democratic members of both the Judiciary and Intelligence Committee. Probably the best stuff came from, frankly, Representative Will Hurd, who's a Republican from Texas, who made the point extremely clearly that Mueller responded to, that said Russians continue to try to interfere in our elections. That is, to me, what the clarion call of Democrats should be, that we have a president shirking his constitutional duty to protect this country and our elections from Russian interference. And why aren't we talking about that? I think the American public has made it pretty clear, at least a lot of independent voters and folks that turned out for Obama in prior elections and it turned out for Trump in 2016, that they don't really care about what Robert Mueller's saying.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That is Maggie Dawn, host of Dawn of the Resistance, joining us in studio here in Milwaukee. I would push back a little bit on that, Maggie. I thought that the questioning by the Intelligence Committee's head, Adam Schiff.
Schiff was probably the best.
I think that, given everybody knew Mueller's condition in those committees, I was a little surprised by it. It kind of felt like, oh, my ma's up there, a little bit older, a little bit slower than perhaps used to be. But they led him down the road, and Schiff knew it, and he was answering yes or no questions. Yes. Did you exonerate? No. I mean, bang, bang, bang. Now, I don't know how you can get a quicker, faster soundbite than the yes or no replies of the special counsel to totally push back on the comments from the president and his supporters that this was total exoneration, no obstruction, no collusion. I mean, you can't get more concise than no.
It was, so this is, and it's interesting because I've always had a theory about who Democrats hire onto their congressional staffs. And they tend to hire recent law school graduates and fairly junior attorneys. And indeed, what you saw yesterday was how a junior attorney would craft effectively a cross-examination of Robert Mueller. That is, asking yes or no questions in rapid succession. My point is that this wasn't a court of law. And what this was,
I understand that.
Right, what this was an attempt to persuade the American public that Donald Trump, in fact, likely committed crimes. And I don't think it succeeded if that was its expectation. That's my point.
Well, let me see if perhaps you and I have differing expectations for what the end outcome should be. Because if I heard you correctly, you talked about, the Senate will never remove this president. And I don't disagree with you. Of course, Mitch McConnell is not going to go,
not today.
Moscow Mitch is not going to go against this president.
Not
but
today.
I don't think that's any longer the standard. I have thought for a long time we got to beat Donald Trump. We got to crush this man at the ballot box. But that does not diminish the responsibility of the House of Representatives to uphold the Constitution. And I'm certainly not satisfied with where the Dems are taking this very slowly, but they've got to take the steps of impeachment or history will judge them, and they will judge them poorly, just like we judge them for failing to prosecute the excesses of Wall Street after the market crashed, the housing crash. The Democrats did nothing to persecute or prosecute that case after the fact. If we let Donald Trump off the hook, history should judge us for that.
I think that's a respectable but micro view. My argument to every member of the Democratic side of the House of Representatives is this. To exercise your constitutional obligations, our overriding constitutional obligation is to ensure that this man never sets foot in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue again, that there is a higher call. And if you know that the American public is tuned out and not paying attention to this, I think their higher duty is to figure out a way to ensure that the Democratic candidate, whomever that may be, wins in 2020. Because if they impeach and it fails, I think that sets a much more dangerous precedent than not moving to file articles of impeachment against this president.
What about the, and you may not have seen this, I saw it on Twitter, Malcolm Nance, considered something of a Russian expert. I see him on MSNBC and other shows. What he said is you go through the impeachment inquiry and you don't offer a trial to Mitch McConnell. You don't offer the impeachment trial until perhaps after the lame duck And if we win back the Senate, there could be a differing outcome. I'm not saying we're going to have 67 votes to remove the president, but we don't necessarily have to let Mitch McConnell have his vindication exonerating trial on the Senate side.
There's so many ifs baked into that strategic argument that I almost think it's a flight of fancy. If we have enough seats in the Senate, if he becomes a lame duck, I just don't view that from a process perspective. What we're seeing Democrats do is respond as they always have, slowly and inarticulately to the Trump administration's failure to adhere to the balance of powers that's baked into our Constitution, failure to produce witnesses that have been properly subpoenaed by the House. That's going to go into court, and that court case, I would argue, is probably going to take months and months. And so,
you don't think we'll see an expedited court calendar? I mean, during Watergate, they moved the courts very rapidly, and the cases they moved to the Supreme Court very rapidly. You might be talking months, but he's got about a year and a half to be the president.
And so what happens, Mike, if they get the Supreme Court to compel Don McGahn?
I've always thought that is a much more compelling witness because he's not a summary witness. He's a direct witness.
I totally
agree. And he
agree.
knows this president told him to fire the special counsel and then told him to lie about it. I think that testimony would be very damning.
As a legal point, what's going to happen is that even if they get him to show up, executive privilege and a whole bunch of other privileges would be asserted during the testimony. And so, again, I challenge people to say, who is the witness? If you think Don McGahn's the best of the bunch, that guy's way smarter than the three of us combined on the air right now.
I don't know about that.
But if we're looking for that silver bullet, that aha moment,
I'm not.
It's not going to happen in a congressional hearing room.
Listen, this is a slow bleed. Congresswoman Mark Pocan was on this show.
But that is not what the American public reacts to.
2 months ago, 8 weeks ago, there was like 50 Congress folks that were down for impeachment. Now, today, 2 months later, 8 weeks later, there's 100. In 2 more months, there's going to be another 50. As these events continue to unfold, as this slow motion train crash continues to happen, we still have court cases in the state of New York. We still have cases with Deutsche Bank. We still have lots of pokers in the fire. We still have FBI counterintelligence investigations confirmed by Mueller yesterday.
My question to you is always this: when
it happens? I'm with Pelosi on this. It happens when it happens. You can't rush it, even if. And today,
meanwhile,
I
the
would
clock to the
suggest
election
today,
keeps on ticking.
It's going to keep on coming, even if it does. It is Congress's duty. Has this administration responded at all to Congress's constitutional duty of executive oversight? Any subpoenas?
They're attempting to do it, but I think their attempts are anemic, poorly coordinated. They do not have the party. Pelosi has not controlled House Dems to get people on message. You've got a whole bunch of independent actors out there. You ever notice something about Republicans? Boy, they all have the talking points, don't they? Democrats need some discipline within their party. They need to get on message. They blew an opportunity with Mueller. I think Republicans did a much more effective rhetorical job. They made speeches. They looked at Mueller.
They were terrible. They were hacks. They were. Are you kidding me?
Why do you say they were hacks? They spoke exactly to their base. They made exactly the points that they needed to make.
Well, what is the point you're trying to make? To convince your base that the president isn't a felonious bastard, or is your point to get to the truth? And if you think that people
my point is to win the election in 20. That's my point. It's always my. Both of you gentlemen and I agree that this man is a fraudster. He's a misogynist. He's a racist. He is undeserving of the office that he holds and that he should be removed. We agree on all those things. What we disagree on is what the end game strategy should be. To me, the only point here is the 2020 election, because believe you me, if this man gets 4 more years, we're going to be looking at a world that's going to hurt way more than we're hurting today.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, that very passionate... Pardon me.
I make him choke up.
That very passionate voice is Maggie Dawn. She is host of Dawn of the Resistance. She's also Milwaukee County Corporate Counsel. She's a friend of ours.
And even when we don't sound like it, right?
I'm not saying you're wrong. I see it through a different prism. And I absolutely want to win the election of 2020. And I think it's very important that we do so. So let's turn our attention to what comes next for the Dems, just for a minute. Dom and I are hitting the road Monday Matter, I'd say maybe 6. How should they react? Because inevitably they're going to be questioned about impeaching Donald Trump. Now, Elizabeth Warren, she's down. Some of the others, I don't think they're going to be as down, but it will be a topic of debate. How should they handle it, to your opinion, knowing you want someone to go and beat this guy?
I think they should replay the podcast of this show and the speech that I just gave before you broke in. That's what they say. That's what they say. They call this man out for what he is, and they say our objective as Democrats and people that care about having a constitutional democracy, that care about the rule of law, that care about having a meaningful voice representing America on a foreign policy stage, that means that whichever one of us wins the Democratic nomination, that we all need to unite to beat this man in 2020. That we cannot count on impeachment, whether or not the House of Representatives moves forward with it or not. We cannot count on impeachment to remove him. Our singular goal that all Democrats and liberals and progressives should share is beating him in 20. That's the answer to the question. Yes, is it a sidestep? Of course it is. But when you're a good politician, that's what you do.
Okay, one more dumb question, at least from this panelist. It seems to me, Maggie, that the normal electoral issues, taxes and different stuff that normally we'd talk about and we'd help to use to guide our determination of who should be the president or the next president. These are not normal times. With the evidence of racism demonstrated by this president, it's hard for me to move on and say, well, but I like his tax policy, but I know there are some rationalizing and doing it. How do we move past, and I know we're out of time, Maggie, but how do we move past?
Oh, you guys are going to stick around for a segment on Dawn of the Resistance.
I'm
roping you in.
Maybe.
So this is a tease for your show.
He's fitting for the Roman coin.
I got a bottle waiting for me. All right, but for you, Maggie, we'll stick around a little bit.
Thanks,
just
guys.
a little bit.
Why don't we tackle that one when we come back? Or do we have how much time do we have, Fancy Brian?
Not enough time for you.
I got just enough time to thank our fine panel of guests today. They included the Democratic Party chair of the great state of Wisconsin, Ben Wikler. Jeff Smith, will have to reschedule him for next week. Thank you, Peggy Adams and Jen Johnson, our friends from Solidarity Realty. And thank you, of course, Maggie Dawn. Of course, I'll stick around as long as you don't tell me I'm wrong.
As long as you tell me I'm not wrong.
You're both wrong.
I already told you you're not wrong, but you might be wrong.
Good point.
Thank you for listening. Devil's Advocates Brady Street Block Party this weekend. Come on down, get a free Resist Trump bumper sticker. Party at Atwood on Monday. Matt Rothschild filling in for the Devils. And then we go to the Democratic presidential debate. Stick around. Maggie Dawn, Dawn of the Resistance, is next.
Are you concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support for legalized medicinal marijuana, even though the 2018 midterm referendum in 11 counties and the city of Waukesha passed by over 79%. Call Scott Fitzgerald at 608-266-5660. Tell him you support legalized medicinal marijuana.
No, I don't see it.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org. You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
Wall funds victory, more Pendleton arrests. I'm Barbara Cusack. The Supreme Court cleared the way for the Trump administration to tap into Pentagon funds for border wall construction.
The Trump administration will be able to redirect $2.5 billion in money approved by Congress for the Pentagon to help build President Trump's promised wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, even though lawmakers refused to provide funding. The conservative majority court on a 5-4 vote blocked in full a ruling by a federal judge in California barring the Republican president from spending the money on the basis that Congress did not specifically authorize the funds to be spent on the wall project fiercely opposed by Democrats in Mexico's government. Joe Ramsey, Washington.
Another step toward the possibility of impeachment taken by the House Judiciary Committee. Correspondent Manu Raju says the panel has moved to obtain grand jury material from the Mueller report.
What they are arguing in this lawsuit is that they need this information, this grand jury information from the Mueller probe, in order to decide whether or not to recommend articles of impeachment against the President of the United States.
Additional service members arrested in what appears to be a human smuggling operation with ties to Camp Pendleton in Southern California. The latest from correspondent Jim Roop.
The first two were caught allegedly trying to smuggle 2 Mexicans into the U.S. earlier this month. 16 were arrested on Thursday, and now Friday, 3 more, one of them a sailor. Major Kendra Motz says all arrested are allegedly connected to the same ring or operation or activity. It's unclear exactly what it is or how deep it goes. However,
if they are in fact found guilty of those crimes, then they'll be held appropriately accountable for that.
An ongoing investigation could result in even more arrests.
When most people were asleep overnight on Wednesday, NASA astronomers say a large asteroid narrowly missed the Earth. NASA said the space rock was about 187 to 427 feet wide. Astronomy magazine said the closest it came to Earth was just under 45,000 miles, but that's still far less than the distance between the Earth and Moon. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Hi, I'm Anton Capella. As Chief Technology Officer at Five Nines, it's my job to make sure your network is up 99.999% of the time. Technology is constantly evolving, and keeping your business up to date in an ever-changing environment can be a hassle. At Five Nines, we're here to help. Five Nines is more than just our name. It's the level of service you can expect. Better IT gives your business a competitive advantage. Learn how Five Nines can help at fivenines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday. Closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
League center fielder Steve Wilkerson made history pitching.
In the bottom of the 16th inning, the Baltimore Orioles outfielder lobbed 50-mile-an-hour pitches to Angels hitters in Los Angeles while holding a slim 10-8 lead.
Wilkerson picks up his first major league save. He had a big double earlier in this game.
Wilkerson became the first position player in big league history to record a save. Wilkerson's save came at the end of a 6-hour, 19-minute affair that didn't end until 4:30 in the morning Eastern Time. I'm John Stolness.
Correspondent Don Riddle says a violent hailstorm forced Tour de France organizers to cut short a nail-biting stage in the high Alps.
You can see from the footage, especially of that kind of rock and mudslide, the panic around the people that were there watching it, because they knew that they only had a matter of minutes to get this message back up the mountain to the organizers to try and get the racers to stop.
But action will resume tomorrow. I'm Barbara Cusack.
The choice. I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but Miss Araceli, she gave me direction.
At age 47, Marco finished his high school diploma.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on News Talk 1510 a.m. Start your weekday off with the Earl Ingram Show from 7 to 9 a.m. Next, it's The Forum with Sherwin Hughes from 9 to noon. Then from 12 till 2, it's the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. Then from 3 to 6, it's The Devil's Advocates. At 6, it's Jocasta Zamaripa, Maggie Dawn, and Unheard Of with Brandy Grayson, Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at newstalk1510am.com. For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. More than 27,000 households in Wisconsin could lose their access to food stamps under a new proposal from the Trump administration. Many of those households have children living in them. This latest blow to the disadvantaged follows the loss of food stamps by 100,000 Wisconsin residents since 2015 because they did not meet new requirements to work in order to receive food assistance. And one of Milwaukee's biggest street parties, the Brady Street Festival, is tomorrow from 11 a.m. until midnight on Milwaukee's east side. There will be food, music, beer, BMX demos, and the Cream City Queens drag show. We will be broadcasting live from the festival starting at noon. Stop by and say hello. For more information, go to bradystreet.org and click on the events page.
Tell me, doctor, all those women you ran through your examination rooms, do you remember their faces, or did you not even bother to look up?
I'd like to alert the court to the fact that by agreeing to these terms, Mr. Tucker has just gone on record to paying himself.
Your Honor, I would prefer that the court not think of me as a nervous woman who needs to be placated with compliments about the state of her wardrobe. I don't want to be treated any differently just because I have breasts.
You're out of order! You're out of order! The whole trial is out of order!
So the criminal in this courtroom is not my client, but the federal government for bringing these bogus charges against my client.
This is not a privacy issue.
Of course it's not. Constitutional issues are defined by men.
How dare you subject this woman to this embarrassment? How dare you subject your kids to it? How dare you live? You giant ass.
Your Honor, I move that my client be allowed to pay the damages and that all the charges against him be dismissed.
Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. It's Dawn of the Resistance with Maggie Dawn, and I basically strong-armed Dom and Crude from the Devils to stay on for at least a segment with me, because it's a party weekend here on Resistance Radio. We got Brady Street Days. We've got stuff going on in Madison. It's German Fest in Milwaukee. There aren't any Germans around in this town, are there? Just one or two. But we pulled the last segment of Devils talking about Mueller and what does all this mean for Democrats in 2020. And, of course, I was listening to the Devil's Advocates before I came into the studio.
Of course you were.
Of course I was. And I happened to hear a little story about Dom and Crute getting arrested about 6 years ago during the protests in the Capitol. And I also heard this little fun fact that Dom apparently was a little bit right of center prior to getting himself arrested.
I'd always say this. I'm very much an individualist, no doubt about it. My position, I didn't ask to be here, right? And I don't know where I'm going. I'm dead. I'm the atheist. So anybody that's going to tell me how it's got to be, I might not take your word for it.
But wouldn't your atheism tend to connote itself more to a left of center political lean?
Well, that's just defining my individualism, number one, right? My existence before society kind of an attitude, right? So that being said, certainly it leans towards some of those maybe right of center positions.
Explain that to me, because I thought Democrats were the party that protected a woman's right to choose, the sanctity of one's own household to make your own sexually independent choices.
Sure.
So I'm a little confused by that one. Are you talking about libertarianism and smaller governments?
Yes, of course.
He was always socially liberal.
Oh, absolutely. That was never a question.
Fiscal conservatism.
Yeah, it was the fiscal conservatism. It was the role and size and scope of government and how it influences my individual right to exist as I damn well choose. And
to me, there's, and maybe this is its own show, and you and I can go back and forth on this for a while. I've always found that to be, candidly, and with respect to my friend Dom, a really troubling philosophical approach, because I consider myself to be a fiscal conservative. And by that, here's what I mean. I work in government. And that means that I believe government should work for every single citizen and resident in the jurisdiction in which it works, that we are stewards of taxpayer dollars. But it also means that government has a role in ensuring that people have equal access and that we do look to redress institutionalized, discriminatory, and harmful policies that have existed for decades and centuries in the United States.
Absolutely.
And so I've always been curious about well, I'm a very independent person, and well, what does smaller government mean? And to me,
Foxconn.
No argument
there. Okay,
so
that is the most obvious, egregious example I can give you, and then we can go down the list from there. Foxconn.
Yeah, and to me, what I think is troubling about it is that we can agree about there is seriously, I think, troubled economic analysis that goes into many, effectively, tax rebate or, here's a private business. We're not going to tax you at all for umpteen years. The economic analysis there is faulty. In some situations, a tax incremental district or tax incremental financing is a good idea. But to me, when you say smaller government, I think what many conservatives hear is, we don't believe in wealth redistribution in any form. We don't believe in reinvesting in public schools. We don't believe in affirmative action. What they read small government to be is capitalism unbound. Ayn Randian sort of, hey, survival of the fittest.
But of course that's not true, because capitalism unbound is the black market. And I don't know any frickin' Republicans that are down for the black market. So they're hypocrites in their own
Except
defense.
for Donald Trump, who likes the black market in Russia because it helps him.
Right. They're hypocrites. If they truly want it, I've made this point. If they truly want small government, they're truly like that, they're truly capitalist, well, it's all about the black market, man. You buy something you don't like, too bad. You want to talk about influence of wages. If you're going to force somebody to pay wages, no, you can't have slave labor. You must pay people to work.
Right, but do you see my point in that I think many libertarians translate small government, and conservatives hear small government, is that, listen, if we just let capitalism run untrammeled and we pull back environmental regulations and all regulations and wage laws and child labor laws and all these things, my argument is that on average over time, what it's going to do is privilege those that have over those that don't.
No question.
9 times out of 10. And for me, that was always my problem.
And I would concur with you. I think a lot of people think in those terms. I just happen to disagree. I think, there's a reason why we don't have slavery. Oh, I can't have slavery. Well, because it's a violation of the individual rights. You have to pay them something. Now the question is, right, what do you pay? What are their work circumstances? Well, you've now already accepted regulation into the workplace. You know what I mean? You've already said it. So for these people to be so holier than thou as, no government, no regulation, but then as soon as someone screws them on the black market, they want some sort of redress. I don't think they actually think it all the way through, because I don't believe anybody, they can't drive on the roads that we are. They can't go to school. They can't use the power that the sewer systems.
This gets me to my point, which is, at least the way I heard it when you guys were talking about it on the Devils, was that your political sort of identification started to change after your arrest.
Yes.
And to me, and again, I love you, man.
Love you, man.
But I'm going to give you a hard time about this. To me, one of the fundamental problems in our current political discourse is this: that people don't get motivated until the thing affects them.
Yes.
So, oh yeah, I'm all for small government until my business gets hurt because there's no regulation protecting my business. I'm not going to identify as left of center or as a Democrat or a progressive until I get arrested. And again, I say this with respect.
No, but I would say this. It wasn't that I identified as that, and because I wasn't arrested, and now I was arrested, I did identify it. It sharpened my specific criticism of government. Fascism. Right? We have a fascist president. When I was arrested in Wisconsin State Capitol, it was by a fascist governor, abusing the administrative law to unconstitutionally arrest people exercising their frickin' First Amendment rights.
I love you, man. You should have gone to law school. Sharpened my criticism of government. Read, folks. I became more left because my butt got arrested, and I saw that people could be improperly subject to the power of the state. And that message got brought home for you.
But I was always concerned about the power
and by
of
the way,
Wait. I was always concerned about the power specific incident.
Not that I often defend my little buddy Dominic, but I've known him for a long time, and we've argued politics for a long time. And here's what I will say in his defense. At least he's consistent. Before he hated Foxconn, he hated his own prism first.
Well, and I'll take a million Doms and a million contrarians before I take a single unthinking conservative who simply says, as Chris from McGuanago, who apparently was confused by the question of whether or not the Confederate flag is a symbol of racism. Chris, if you're listening, I make this suggestion to you. Pull each articles of separation that was free as a reason for their separation. It lists slavery. And unless you think slavery isn't a racist institution, my friend, you're just wrong. And I think that's a problem when we talk about race in this country and you have somebody, oh, well, if you criticize America, that means you have to go back from where you came. No, you dummy. It means you're exercising your First Amendment rights. The very nature of our democratic republic is founded on the very principle that we can argue and criticize our government, our country, our elected officials, and each other. And do so without the concern that a president is going to say the most un-American thing. You want to talk about being anti-American? What he said was anti-American. Absolutely unconscionable. So if you don't think that the Confederate flag is a symbol of slavery, I challenge you, go read what every state that seceded from the Union had to say for the reason that they were seceding from the Union, and it is and only and ever shall be written into history as slavery. Just ridiculous. Maggie? Yes, sir.
Did I ever tell you the story about when I was at a Donald Trump rally March 29th of 2016 in Janesville, Wisconsin, outside a what was it, a Holiday Inn Express they were having the big event at.
Which
and there
says
was
a
lots
lot.
Of secret,
it's not even a Holiday Inn.
Lots of Secret Service, but there were protesters. And then I'm in the protest pen. They stuck the protesters in a jail. Like, you protest in jail over here. And I'm in the jail talking to some protesters. And I see this Confederate flag waving by. And I hear the crowd, the protest crowd. They're responding. You can hear, what the son of a, you're hearing the response as it goes by. And I beeline through the crowd and I followed this guy. And I went over and, Crudy had some questions. And I asked the man, because not only did he have the flag, he had the Confederate flag tattoo.
Oh, he's a real charmer.
He was coordinating.
Did you tell him I'm single?
Surprised he didn't have it on the belt buckle. But anyways, I asked him what it represented to him. And he said, states' rights. And I said, what state are you from?
Wisconsin. I love that I knew the punchline. Listen, stay tuned. I'm not sure if the goofsome twosome is going to stick around. I sure hope they do. I love these guys. You're listening to Maggie Dawn on Dawn of the Resistance, WRRD 1510 AM, Talk 92.7 in Madison. We might take some callers if you guys are not already in the bag on this party weekend. It's 844-967-2789. If you're on the phone, stay tuned. We'll take you next. Stick with us, everybody.
Accredited Investors, WRD 1510, seeks to immediately construct 101.7 in Milwaukee, a brand new 24/7 FM licensed to cover up to 1.8 million people in the nation's number 31 media market. Milwaukee has a Wisconsin Supreme Court primary, a presidential primary, mayoral and county executive races, a Supreme Court general, the Democratic National Convention, and the 2020 presidential race next year. For an accredited investor, there's never been a better time to invest or extend a fixed return loan to an expanding lefty radio station, 1.2 miles from the National Convention. Interested parties call me at the station or email crude@talk927fm.com. That's crude@talk927fm.com. Investments may be subject to an SEC 506C filing.
Hey, Al Bachman here. My family has owned and operated Bachman Construction since 1954. Since opening our doors, understanding the needs of our clients, and striving to exceed their expectations have been the cornerstones of how we do business. Quality is our foundation. We are proud of providing quality service and establishing a tradition of excellence in the Madison community for more than 65 years. Give Bachman Construction a call today and let us know how we can use our 3 generations of experience to make your next project a success.
The second Democratic presidential debates will air live on WRRD 1510 AM and Talk 92.7 FM. July 30th and 31st, the Devil's Advocates will provide on-the-ground Detroit Rock City coverage 3 to 7 p.m. Central Time, and then live debate to air 7 to 9 with limited commercial interruptions thanks to the Teamsters Local 200. Dems' second presidential debate, Devil's Advocate style, July 30th and 31st, exclusively on WRRD 1510 AM and Talk 92.7 FM.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Maggie Dawn. You're listening to Dawn of the Resistance on Real Resistance Radio. If you want to chime in, Lord knows Mike, Dom, and I can talk plenty to each other for a while. It's 844-967-2789. We've been talking about the Mueller report, how Dems should win in 2020, and also about Dom's political awakening.
My coming-of-age story. It's very John Hughes.
I won't start hitting you guys.
He blossomed.
Yeah, I won't start hitting Dom and Crute about their white privilege and their lawsuits that they brought after getting arrested.
If
Maybe
I admit
until
I
the
have
next-
white privilege, am I then exonerated?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because then the next question is, what are you doing about it? But we're going to hold on to that.
Come on, we do radio. That's our gift to society.
Wow, there's so much there. So glad.
Start
it's-
unpacking, sister.
Oh, good Lord. Why don't we take a caller? Mark, my friend from Prairie du Sac. Always great to hear from you, buddy. What do you got for us?
Well, it's great to hear from you. And I've been talking to these guys for as long as they've been on the air, I think. And though Dom's been a libertarian, he's never, gone as far as to, embrace the whole Ayn Rand canard here. If people place such things as friendship and family ties above their own productive work, yes, then they are immoral. Friendship, family life, and human relationships are not primary in a man's life. A man who places others first above his own creative work is an emotional parasite. Well, from what I've been able to tell, Don deeply cares about his family. He cares about his fellow man.
Which one of Ayn Rand were you just reading from, Mark?
That was just one of her quotes. I mean,
Yeah, she's a charmer, isn't she?
Atlas Shrugged is fiction. It's a novel. It's like Star Wars. They know it's not real, right?
Yeah, well, they don't know it's not real because throughout her life she was quoting John Galt as if he was a real person.
Right?
Well, of course it turned out for John Galt because that's the way she wrote it. I mean,
has anyone ever gone Galt in their life? I wish I'd have gone Galt, but no one's ever done that. No one's ever just said, well, taxes are too high. I'm done being productive in life.
Yeah, and here's the problem, in part, and this is maybe where Mark is going, and then I want to flip it back to Mark. Paul Ryan, who was, up until Donald Trump's ascendancy, the darling of the Republican Party, said without joking that he was a devoted Christian and that Ayn Rand was one of his heroes. It didn't occur to him that those two things are actually theoretically and intellectually completely incompatible.
When I first heard Mark read that quote, I thought for just a second he was reading it off the tattoo on Paul Ryan's ass.
Go ahead, Mark.
Charming. Mark, I'm sure you have something actually substantive to say, so please go ahead.
Well, no, it's something substantive to say, and then I'll say something else, is that apparently the right-wing Christian community has adopted Ayn Rand. They've woven her into their Calvinist ideology, apparently. I mean, it's remarkable that that you could go back 10, 15 years ago, and they would just be decrying Ayn Rand because she's a complete atheist, had nothing but contempt for Christianity.
For religion, yeah.
And here's another little gem that I keep this on hand. Democracy, in short, is a form of collectivism which denies individual rights. The majority can do whatever it wants with no restrictions. In principle, the democratic government is all-powerful. Democracy is totalitarian, a totalitarian manifestation. It is not a form of freedom. And this is what these people believe. They believe, I think, in what Dom says is fascism, because they think they see, that they see themselves as a collection of supermen, and the rest of us should just be happy to
bask in their collective wise judgments. Boom, Mark, you are right on point. One of the fundamental problems, one of my first shows, and it's on the podcast space. on the website, I talked about evangelicals and this prosperity theology and the fundamental hypocrisy and anti-Christian values that I am wealthy because I deserve to be, and anyone that is poor or hurting is morally culpable in their current state. It is fundamentally the most anti-Christian thing that I have heard.
If you're poor, God hates you.
That's right. And you deserve your lot in life. Absolutely abhorrent theology. But again, I go on. Jesse, my brother, what's up? What do you got for us?
I just had a suggestion for Chris from McGonigal.
Oh, good. Give Chris some more guff.
If he doesn't think that the rebel flag is racist, I think that he should get himself a Dukes of Hazzard car, and he could drive it down to the station on Brady Street. Maybe go down Center Street, because that's how I take to get to the station. I think he would kind of realize how welcome he actually is in his ideology if he would drive a Dukes of Hazzard car.
Well, that's because the black people are racist.
Yeah,
They're reverse racist against the car.
See, Jesse, it's not racist if you don't think it's racist.
Oh, unless you say the word race.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thanks, Jesse.
It's very true that I think it's so easy for white people to say, as a general point, well, I don't think that's racist. Well, excuse me, but when was the last time that you had a meaningful conversation about race with a person that isn't your race? I just don't understand.
Does Earl count?
Earl, of course, counts. Because
all right,
we all
then yesterday.
Well, we all have different lived experiences.
Of course.
And unless you open yourself up and you legitimately want to listen to what someone else experiences when they live a life as a person of color, I really don't have time to listen to your completely hackneyed, McGonigal-based, I live in a bubble, I don't know any black people. His reference to gang members, I mean, what? In other words, you revealed your own racism, Chris, by effectively equating everybody that lives in Milwaukee to gang members. For shame, sir. Such an easy argument to rebut.
We also need to leave open the opportunity for people to become more aware, to become more educated, more empathetic.
At least he's listening.
This is what I'm saying. At least he's listening. He agrees with us on a little bit here and here. Listen, I mean, we need more people around the campfire for the conversation, you know? And not everyone's going to agree on stuff, and that's okay. Let's put down some passionate arguments, and maybe you win, maybe you lose. Crack a beer at the end, because we want to be a civilized society, and we need civilized engagement in order to do so.
So I always agree with that, and I want to talk about risking a little bit personally. Right?
No.
Because to have that open dialogue, you actually have to be willing to put a little bit of yourself out there. And so I do give Chris credit for calling up and being courageous enough to basically get made fun of on the radio. That takes some courage.
It does.
And I think the more people that are willing to have conversations about really uncomfortable stuff and to not just repeat the talking points off of Fox or MSNBC, equally so.
Yep.
We can have better dialogues. It's why I appreciate Dom and Crute, who always tell me that I'm wrong.
We appreciate you, Maggie. Thank you so much.
I only say that when you're wrong.
Well, roger that, Mike. Sometimes you're wrong, too, but I love you, man. Thanks for putting me on the air, boss. You've been listening to Dom and Crute and Maggie Dawn on Dawn of the Resistance. Hang in here. We got more coming at you for the last two segments of Fun Friday. Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
What's the difference a governor can make for Wisconsin? When it comes to healthcare, education, transportation, and relief for the middle class, the answer is a lot. That's why we're thanking Governor Tony Evers for his leadership in the state budget. Evers delivered the largest funding increase in a generation to fix Wisconsin roads and bridges. Thank you, Evers, for raising the wages for personal healthcare workers, providing millions for rural healthcare, and a $500 million increase in health services for everyone in our state. And thank you, Governor Evers, for cutting taxes for working families. The Evers budget makes real progress, but there's more work to do.
The Wisconsin Opportunity Coalition paid for this ad to thank Governor Tony Evers for his leadership and for getting results.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support for legalized medicinal marijuana, even though the 2018 midterm referendum in 11 counties and the city